13,500 tickets had been sold, and this crowd is ready to make sure the North Stars know when they skate out there that the home ice advantage they earned is indeed a home ice advantage.
Well, they're hoping it is, but keep in mind they're playing against the St. Louis Blues. The Blues simply have the best road record during the regular season in the NHL, and Brian Sutter told us both this morning, he said, we didn't win 23 games on the road by accident. The Blues will be tough here.
Yet the North Stars have not been an accidental team at home since the All-Star break. They've only lost a couple of games, one late in the season to St. Louis, and then last week in the playoffs to the Chicago Blackhawks.
Well, they have been strong, but they have had trouble finding their offense. The Blues have really been outstanding defensively against them. But leading the way for the North Stars is Brian Bellows. But has he paid a price for his offense? 13 points, but against Chicago and also in this series against St. Louis, seems to be a target. Perhaps coincidental, but nevertheless it seemed to me as if the Blues were going after him in Game 2. It'll be interesting to see how Bellows reacts here at home. He plays well here.
Yeah, and whether there'll be a carryover from some of the rough stuff we had in Game 2 as well. We spoke with Bob Caney, the Minnesota North Stars coach tonight, about whether coming home will mean anything different to his team. Will they change?
We'll change very little in our approach. Coming home with the series tied, initially we have the advantage, and now we have to keep the advantage by winning games on our own ice. If that doesn't happen, then we have to look at being able to pick up another game in St. Louis. So the pressure shifts to our team, and rightly so. We'll have the familiarity of being at home and support of our people to help us.
And changing very little definitely means paying a lot of attention to Brett Hall. And the North Stars did an outstanding job. In Game 1, they limited Brett Hall to one shot. In Game 2, Brett Hall didn't score, but I was most impressed with his effort. Also the effort of Adam Oates. Everywhere Hall went, he had somebody on his back, including late in the game when he had one guy draped all over his back. That did not stop Brett Hall from feeding Adam Oates for the winning tally. Brett Hall said to me this morning, more of the same. I'm going to work hard tonight.
The Blues have 30 goals in the playoffs. Hull has been on the ice for 22, but he has only 14 points. So not only is he a great player with the puck, he's also a productive one without the puck, too.
Yeah, he is. And remember, the St. Louis Blues will not have the last line change, so Brian Sutter is going to have to work hard to get Brett Hall out there when he wants him. Is Brian Sutter going to do anything differently here? Well, we asked him today.
I don't think with our hockey club, Bill, we've been very, very consistent on the road this year, and everybody really has got a role to play, and everybody plays it. But a lot of the people, when we don't have the puck, a lot of guys in our hockey club are very, very responsible and very reliable, and that's a great thing to have as a coach. So you don't really have to change a heck of a lot on the road.
We've heard from the coaches, and we've heard from the crowd here. Now let's hand out the check marks on the edge. What do you think?
It's going to be close. Offensively, the Blues are a better team than the North Stars all around. But believe it or not, the power play for Minnesota is better than the power play of St. Louis. You go all the way down to check marks, and the deciding one is the intangible. I really think Minnesota's going to come out hot here. So you add them all up, it's a very slight advantage for the Minnesota North Stars because they are coming home here.
Well, we've already heard the one thundering ovation as the North Stars came out onto the ice. This crowd is just busting to come through with more. Series tied at 1-1. It won't be by the end of the evening. We'll be back with Game 3 and the opening face-off right after this.
Tonight's Stanley Cup playoff game on Sports Channel America is brought to you by Mercury. See the exciting new line of 1991 Mercury automobiles at your Lincoln Mercury dealer. Nothing moves you like a Mercury. Try Labatt's Blue, the crisp, clean taste of Canada's best beer. Between friends, it's True Blue, Labatt's Blue. And by the Upjohn Company. If you're concerned about hair loss, see your doctor.
Each year, the expert car and driver look at over 100 cars, so you don't have to. From the current new cars, they just pick their 10 best. At the most, you'll probably only buy one of them. That's too bad, because 2 of the 10 best are Mercury. Mercury Stable and Mercury Tracer LTS. All this in the quality of a Mercury.
Yeah, we just scored. No, I didn't see Kevin get hit. Kev, you okay?
I wind up in the hospital, and Bob gets the winning goal.
I couldn't let Kevin miss the part.
I was having a pretty good time where I was.
Friends deserve the best. Friendship. Just seeing that. The crisp, clean taste of Canada's best beer, Labatt's Blue.
I have to be flat on my back to get Bob to buy me a blue.
Between friends, it's True Blue, Labatt's Blue.
10 years. Is there anything you will say? I don't remember her looking so beautiful. Not bad. I suck.
bath. Tell her you'd marry her all over again.
He still can't pick an appetizer.
To help relieve her heartburn, regular Rolaids uses an aluminum straw. But his antacid is Tums, and Tums has calcium.
Something my body needs anyway. I like that. I used to have dandruff, so I tried Head and Shoulders. Then I tried Selsun Blue. Blue is better.
Selsun Blue relieves dandruff flecking better than Head & Shoulders. And doctors recommend it more than Head & Shoulders, Danorex, and Tegman.
Blue is better.
Selsun Blue.
Good evening and welcome to Sports Channel Studios in New York. I'm C.J. Papa. The Campbell Conference laces up the stakes for game number 3 tonight. Both St. Louis and Los Angeles need victories to regain home ice advantage. For the moment, Edmonton controls home ice advantage, but those Oilers could be physically and mentally drained after 4 consecutive overtime games. The record is 5. John Muckler's team could be just a bit sluggish. Will Craig Uni be a marked man? The defenseman is responsible for injuries to the Kings' leading goal scorers, Thomas Sanson and Bob Podolsky. Both players were hurt in Game 2 and are gone for the series. Podolsky is out 3 to 4 months. Sanson is expected out 3 to 4 weeks. And in the Wales Conference, both Boston and Pittsburgh posted victories in Game 3 last night. They now regain home ice advantage. Okay, coming up next, we're going to send you out to the Met Center in Minnesota, where Minnesota and St. Louis are getting ready for game number 3. Right now, let's take you out to the Met Center in game 3 for St. Louis and Minnesota.
It does your heart good to see this place going nuts again. Nearly a full house, if not completely a full house. The goalkeeper tonight for the St. Louis Blues will be Vincent Riendo. His 17th straight playoff start. He has the lowest goals against average in the entire league in the playoffs at 2.50. And don't expect the goaltending situation for the North Stars to change at all. Unless John Casey falls flat on his face, he is going to be the guy that Bob Gainey uses all the way to the end, as far as that is. Officials tonight, Andy Van Helleman with Wayne Bonney and Ron Asseltine. The standby Ron Hogarth. The off-ice officials from Detroit, Shane Sherla and Basil McRae will be the starting wingers, with Bureau in the middle. Tomlinson, Oates, and Rich Sutter for the St. Louis Blues. Dahlquist and Tenorti, the defense for Minnesota. Stevens and Brown for St. Louis. Stevens shrugged that one down, and then hurtling over the top of him was Mark Bureau. Dahlquist drills it back in and around the boards. It swirls, comes back over near Tenorti, and we get a stoppage of play. A delayed offside has been whistled down. You know, a couple of the North Stars players talked today about the tempo of this hockey game. The ice here is really the best ice in the National Hockey League. And when you take a look at Bob Gainey's strength of his hockey team, it's the speed of his forwards. Stu Gavin said, my job, even against Hull, as good as he is offensively, should be made easier because my strength, my number one asset, is the ice here, my skating. So Bob Gainey's guys hope to push the tempo up a little bit here. I think Scott Stevens is geared and ready to go on this one. You know, I said in Game 2 that Scott Stevens gets better as the game gets longer. Started out pretty strong there, didn't he? He sure did. McRae and Sherla have stayed out with Bureau. And now Bob Basson is out with Lowry on the left, and Brett Hull is on the right next to McRae. No change in the defense combination for Minnesota, but already Brian Sutter has decided to put Garth Butcher and Paul Cavallini out on defense for St. Louis. Mark Tenorti comes in to take the face-off now. It's chased out as Bureau. The veteran Ron Asseltine set to drop it. Basil McRae wheels in for the face-off now. Roughs it up a bit with Basson as the puck wedged to the corner. Paul Cavallini picks it off. The forechecker is Sherla. The puck dropped back off and fielded by Mark Tenorti. Just underway here. Game 3 from the Met Sports Center in Bloomington, Minnesota. Glad you've joined us tonight on Sports Channel. Bureau flips one that sails into the third row of the seats behind the net. He'll play home. Why do I expect this baby to continue to heat up? I mean, I always expect change of venue to have something to do with it. Basil McRae and his guys are going to be absolutely charged because of the crowd here. And it happens so often in a series. It starts to heat up in Game 1. It
continues in game 2, and by the time you've got the change of in, you're back to the other guy's building. It's out of control.
Gray is back out there again. The Blues player that you may have seen him talking to at the bench was the only Blues standing who has just now sat back down. That was Darren Kimball, one of the protagonists from the other team. Now, Basil was still more worried.
Basil looked like a guy that I stood there this morning comparing notes with on our one-year-old son. I mean, he's a great family man, good team guy. But you don't talk about babies and kids and quieter things off the ice when you get to this stage of a hockey season.
Bob Clark's best compliment. That guy comes to play absolutely every night. Now, that's trite, I realize, but when Bob Clark says it, he reserves that for only certain special types of players. Basil is one of them. Bobby Smith having a bit of a tangle, and the referee, Andy Van Helleman, is going to take a pair off on this one.
Well, it looks like both of them are going off. Basson, along with Bobby Smith. Talked to Bobby Smith today and asked him if he felt the North Stars have an advantage because they're home now.
Always maintained that home ice advantage meant less in the playoffs. We were able to win 2 out of 3 in Chicago. Certainly St. Louis was a team that had a great deal of success on the road. We do feel more comfortable in our own building, but I think it's dead heat right now.
Bobby Smith, a man reprieved from a wrong that was done him in the first game when he swung at the puck, and the puck hit Paul Cavallini, and Bobby Smith was given a game misconduct for high sticking. But that has been rescinded, and the league rightly so, because they did get a chance to look at the replay of that from game 1 as we watch some of this from game 3.
Well, this is kind of a new situation for Bobby Smith. Bob Basson has played almost exclusively against Dave Gagne's line, and that's a matchup that Brian Sutter, we think, is still going to want. Bob Gainey was unsure about how he was going to handle his matchup, what he was going to do with Brett Hall as of this morning. Brian Sutter was trying to sort through some things, was going to talk to his coaching staff and see which way he was going to go. But that was an unusual matchup. Usually Basson and Dave Gagne in this series.
Blues are on the power play, and Smith got the extra minor for slashing. We'll get all of the penalties for you in a second. Smith got 4 minutes, Basson got 2, but the Blues are on their man advantage. Puck fed across, quick shot by Brown, loose puck in front, hit that, and then flipped along by Tenorti. Kept alive, though, by Paul Cavallini to Hull. Fires, and that blocked down. Scoop back out by Neil Broughton. The Blues are 1 for 11 in the series, and that one was kicked in by a Minnesota player in the second game. They are 1 for the last 28 overall. Tenorti tried to check Brown. That didn't work. It's swatted along by Chambers. Reaching for it is Stu Gavin, but it's pumped away from him by Paul Cavallini. Taken loose by Tomlinson, but he can't control until now. Tenorti right there to get it. Sealed up on the boards, but it's worked ahead for Broughton, and he's able to flip it back out. Minnesota has just been splendid in the playoffs in penalty killing. In the last 27 short-handed situations, dating back to midway in the Chicago series, they've only yielded one, and that was that fluky one in game 2. St. Louis not in sync as they reach the line halfway through this power play. 18 minutes to go in the first period. And we get a stoppage of play. Down on his knees is Jeff Brown.
He just tried to wind up, dump it in hard around, and he succeeded in that, but he took a shot up high as he let it go. Well, you said the Blues power play out of sync. It has been so out of sync since the playoffs began, but you know, they were showing signs. The last 3 regular games in the regular season, the Blues had 17 power play opportunities, and they only scored on 2 of those, and that was way off their average percentage success rate during the regular season. So, you know, the old story of a power play does not go into a slump overnight. It does not necessarily snap out of a slump overnight. Is definitely true. You go back to the last 3 games of the regular season.
And those last 3 games were not relaxed ones that it didn't matter how it turned out for them, and so they weren't as intense. They needed to win those to get first overall and get first in the division, which they failed to do on the final day. Chicago beat them out by a point. Ahead now to Scott Stevens, cranks it around. 38 seconds to go on this power play. No score in the game, only 1 shot on goal, and that's from a Blues stick. To the corner, Stu Gavin goes, wrapped up by Hall, trying to pump it along with those from Dixville. Blues captain bringing it back out, hangs back on for Dan Quinn. Plays it in deep, and Casey right there to butt it off for John Chambers. Back down it goes. The minor penalty that was outstanding between Smith and Basson has now been served. It was Smith slashing and roughing, Basson slashing only at the 50-second mark. Brindamore moving in. Brindamore with an opening shot. It's covered quickly on a deflection by Chambers. Norris wraps it along the boards, and Dave Gagne tries to speed out with it. Some hell pass to come, and it does from Chambers. Slaps one around the wall. That one swirls across to Brindamore. Stepped into by Madonna. Ars Butcher lays it over for Stevens. Quickly back for Hall. Tips one through Brindamore. Moving in its block. And that one is saved and held by Riengo. 16:33 to go first period. A shot apiece. No goals apiece.
A company can learn a lot in 125 years. Valvoline has. You learn in the lab, you learn on the road, you learn on the racetrack. As you learn, you make your product better. And better, and better. Today's Valvoline will keep your engine cleaner than ever before. And cleaner means more protection against engine wear. 125 years of quality. That's why people who know use Valvoline.
The line, the North Stars want to get some offense from Gagne, Madonna, Brian Propp. Brian Propp had this wrist shot a couple of seconds ago. Vincent Riengo really had an easier time of it than you would have imagined. Wasn't going that fast.
Puck picked up by Kurt Giles. Giles has a man in front.
Well, we were here a couple of times this hockey season, and we didn't hear this kind of noise. The crowd has erupted because the North Stars have taken the lead. Innocent shot. Every shot that is on goal or even directed towards the goal has a chance of going in. I don't even think that was deflected. If it was deflected down. And as Riengo was going down, it just dropped into the net beside him. Kurt Giles shot it. We'll see if he gets credit for the goal. Didn't look like there was a North Star in front. If it deflected off a blue. But the North Stars have the lead, and that has been a key.
Mark Puro had just moved to the front but hadn't arrived yet. So we'll call this one Giles all the way until we get the official announcement. Write it in pencil because we do get changes on this, but this can be in pen. Minnesota has scored the last of the 7 first goals of the playoffs in a row. For getting them early in this series. Puck jump behind. Still they battle for it. Madonna trying to flick it away. Puck forced off. Checked off with Propp. Jeff Brown able to prevail it along. Good hit put on Kelly. Chased by Wilkinson. Puck turned back to Wilkinson. Shuffles it off for Sean Chambers. Deals it back for Madonna. And Madonna just floods it ahead for Propp. He's got a man flying. It's Gagne. The pass off the mark. And if he takes it, it's an offside play. And they even signal an offside pass at the line. So a halt to play on that.
Well, the lead is sure something that Bob Gainey and his Minnesota North Stars are comfortable with. Before tonight, in the last 5 games that the North Stars have played, that goes back to the Chicago series as well, the North Stars have played 220 minutes and 47 seconds of the time. The opposition, 12 minutes and 5 seconds. And here we go again. The North Stars haven't had to play catch-up, and it's a good thing. They're better with the lead. One more look at the goal. Hasn't hit anything yet. Did it there, or did it just have so little steam that it dropped? It had to change. I can't imagine Riengo just fanning on that. It looked like it was just a split-finger shot by Kurt Giles. It dropped when it got to Riengo.
Giles gets the goal. Puro the assist at 3:39. So the North Stars scored at 1:46 in the first game and 26 to the second. Buck centered across by Craig, and that went wide. Venorti up with it, deals it for Broughton, wants to get in front, but can't do it with control. Broughton waiting behind. Craig at the front, watched there by Featherstone. Puck set in front, close-order shot, another one. That poke loose. Up with it now and controlling. Trying to backhand in front. Daytime is James. It's held by Riengo. And play once again is stopped in a little jump by Craig.
This is the kind of offensive pressure that Minnesota has to put on St. Louis. St. Louis is still one of the top defensive teams in hockey. And Neil Broughton behind waited until until Brett Hall vacated the front. Hall had been standing there in front of Mark Tenorti. As soon as Hall went to Broughton, bingo, little pass out to Tenorti. Good save on the first one by Riendo. Then he got all kinds of help. See Hall move to him? As soon as Hall moved, that was Broughton's cue. As long as Broughton was standing there and the Blues were holding their ground in front, I'm not sure Broughton had an option but to stand there. He was waiting for a Blues commit, and he got the commitment.
Riendo will watch this face-off that will involve Bobby Smith. For the 12th straight year, a part of these Stanley Cup playoffs. You see Neil Broughton, of Louisville, Minnesota. One of 3 Minnesota natives on this team. Off-hand back off by Paul Catalini. Brought right back up again by Rick Sutter, but this one ricocheted back where Catalini had to make the kneeling play. Sutter has to go deeper to get control. Bobby Smith darts right toward him, hooked off by Butcher. Sutter with a pass across. Paul Catalini with it there. Tries to shake by Glenn. That doesn't work, and it's 2-on-1 now. What a costly turnover in the neutral zone and an excellent transition. The counterattack right back to Bobby Smith. He had 2, maybe 3 options, including shooting. He decided to pull it to his backhand and move it across. These guys aren't supposed to be able to do this. These are the guys in their 30s, in their second grueling series. Bobby Smith is Stu Gavin. And Gavin, the only guy that has been a star for either team in the first 2 games, puts this one home, gives the North Stars a 2-0 lead, and Gavin had to make contact with that puck with his stick before it went in, because he would have, I think, had it disallowed because it was directed in with his skate until he jammed it home with his stick. Super play. Good point. Bobby Smith the pass. Primary assist. Brian Glynn the secondary assist on Gavin's second. 5:29 was the time on that one. Just a minute 50 after they scored the first goal. Interestingly enough, the cheer was almost as loud for the replay on the big board at center ice as it was for Gavin Dragon's scoring of it. 2-0 Minnesota ahead. They've outshot St. Louis 5-1 despite the fact that Louis had one power play. Ahead with this Calhoun. Nudges on for Brindamore, then to Adam Oates. Oates tries to dance by. Double teaming that time. Bobby Smith able to help it in for John Casey to steal. We'll be back to the next Sports Center in a moment.
Yeah, we just scored. No, I didn't see Kevin get hit. Kev, you okay?
I wind up in the hospital, and Bob gets the winning goal.
I shouldn't let Kevin miss the part.
I was having a pretty good time where I was.
Friends deserve the best. Friendship. Just being there. The crisp, clean taste of Canada's best beer, Labatt Blue.
I have to be flat on my back to get Bob to buy me a blue.
Between friends is true blue. Labatt Blue.
Of the 77 goaltenders that played during the regular season, that's how many played, 77. Only 5 were busier than John Casey during the regular season. He played 55 in all.
There's a song that they sing for him here when he gets on a roll called Johnny Be Good. Remember that one? As the band and the crowds get larger, the voices are not necessarily better, but louder. Ahead with this is dropping it 2-on-1 and McDonald. Nice job, and he may have gotten the post, but it ricocheted off the glass. Brindamore with a pass back over for Harold Smith. Dumps it back in. It kicked near Casey. Back to play it was Wilkinson, but he was kept into by Brindamore. 2 aside continuation. He was down on the board, and kicking with it is Wilkinson. Straight into by Brindamore. Puck tipped ahead. Lifted along by Casey. Back down. It'll be an icy call unless Madonna gets there first. And Butcher. Madonna with Butcher and got a half of it, so play continues. But now we get a stoppage of play. Andy Van Hellemond has signaled a penalty. It'll be against St. Louis. 2-0 North Stars. Let's pause for this regional break.
Well, maybe, if you don't do drugs or alcohol or drop out of school.
Promise we won't.
Okay, then let's make a deal. A contract.
Get your own contract at any Citgo gasoline retailer. Mail it back and you'll get Dale's official poster. Plus, a chance to meet him at a real NASCAR race.
It's a formula for America.
Dad,
It's your contract at Citgo today.
The St. Louis Blues now have all kinds of problems they have to take care of. One is team defense. 2-on-1. Cross to Madonna. I just think he pulled it wide, Mike. I don't know if it hit anything on the way, maybe the blade, but Madonna had all kinds of time. No, he just pulled that. He pulled it wide by a good foot to 12 inches, but the 2-on-1s and 3-on-2s, that's not the St. Louis Blues.
Oh, he had a man in front, Gagne, all alone, but couldn't get it to him. And the Blues turn it back out. Dropping wedge off by Lowry, and swirling with this is Gagne back. Minnesota, 7 of the last 28 in their playoff power play. The Blues have the best penalty killing number of any team left in the Stanley Cup competition. 88%. Gagne to the point, drops and waits. Now fires. It went off to Norris. Scooped up by Gagne. Bartender, and knocks it down, and then quickly got the glove on top of it to stop play.
Number one rule of the Minnesota power play. When it's boxed down, get it to Neil O'Brien. Jamming in front, kind of a basic approach. This time the bounce went right to Dave Gagne. You know, he had room. Well, I couldn't see it from here, but on that replay, you saw daylight that Gagne was going for. Leandro was able to squeeze it. It is a tough part for a goalie when a little shot like that happens right in close. You hope that the opposition doesn't get their stick in at your feet to get at it, because you have a tough time bending down to get it, worrying about knocking it into the net yourself.
Shots are 6-2. Still a lot of time to go in the power play. A minute and 20 as Scott Stevens able to lift it out. So Broughton will go back to get it. Now he and Tenorti, Trop, Gagne, and also Brian Bellows are the 5 North Stars out. You mentioned Stevens. Butcher is in back. Batten working up front along with Rich Leonard. Nicely by Stevens. Unable to slide their way from Broughton, and Bellows fires and makes by Luck on the long side. Drop on the front.
Two in game one, they scored 2 in game 2. They just scored their 3rd goal. Haven't even played 8 minutes. Beautiful shot by Brian Propp, and I'm going to give Brian Propp a lot of credit on this one because he did not shoot to score. When Bellows missed wide on his shot, Brian Propp came in, took a peek up, and Bellows had done a little button hook to the side of the net. Brian Propp put it right on the tape. Easy deflection for Brian Bellows. 3-0 Minnesota.
The power play goal, Bellows is 6th at 7:52, and Propp comes up with the assist. 3-0 Minnesota. They wanted more. The pass missed for Bobby Smith. Diego gathers it in, flips it off a brim to Moore ahead. Kept for a moment by Chambers on the brush, but then it comes back to the ahead. That one hooked from him by Hall. Oates moves on. Has trouble with Smith. An offside call. 11:37 to go in the first. 3-0 the home team.
Hollywood Pictures presents Michael Keaton as one good cop in the battle for the street. The line has been drawn. He's fighting a war that America can't afford to lose. One Good Cop, rated R, starts Friday, May 3rd. And from Touchstone Pictures, it's Sylvester Stallone in Oscar.
Sylvester Stallone took aside his big macho image, and he's funny.
It was a different Stallone than I've ever seen before.
He's much better in comedy than that Rambo.
Oscar, rated PG, starts Friday. And One Good Cop starts Friday, May 3rd.
Boy, did 3 goals take the heat off Dave Gagne. I talked to him today and asked him if he thought his line had to make a significant offensive contribution for the North Stars to knock the Blues off in this series. He wouldn't admit that they had to make a significant offensive contribution, but he did say that they at least had to play even out there. They could not afford to be minus.
Bellows is 6th on the power play from Propp, and Broughton also recorded an assist on that at 7:52. Minnesota off to a big advantage here, scoring on 3 of the first 7 shots. Paul Cantley with one that dropped wide. Sean Chambers steps right to it, floats it ahead. Bobby Smith starts out in the 2-on-2. Watched by Garth Butcher. Moves over with Bellows. Smith, a nice move with Pepperoni. That went wide. It is kept by Wilkinson. Slugs one in front, kicked wide by Oates. Behind with it now is Smith. There'll be a penalty coming up to the St. Louis Blues. And Smith was fouled. And the North Stars are going to have another power play. And a chance to enlarge a lead that keeps growing.
Too much of a good thing is a good thing. The new, incredibly comfortable Mercury Grand Marquis. All this on the quality of a Mercury.
The North Stars go on the power play. Again, slashing to Garth Butcher, 9:02 of the first period. Bobby Smith with an outstanding shift in general. One move was excellent. He got the puck back behind the net, and there was a slash by Garth Butcher. Looked like he hit him pretty good on the arm. Brian Sutter, the coach of the St. Louis Blues, looking on here at a faceoff that involves Gagne as well as Rick Mahar. Puck slips into the seat, gives us a chance to set the North Stars for you. Tenorti and Broughton will be at the back. Bellows and Propp will be up front with Dave Gagne. Brian Bellows just keeps plugging along. He came into this hill 2 points behind Brett Hull, 1 point behind Adam Oates in playoff scoring. Well, his goal, his 1 point in this game, ties him now with Adam Oates, 14 points apiece. Broughton will have to go back. Mahar working with Lowry up front for the penalty-killing Blues, and in back Paul Cavallini and Scott Stevens. Gagne with a pass ahead. Crisply from Propp across to Tenorti, banks it back in. Riendo saw that one just skip crazily by. Paul Cavallini lifts, and Mahar will have a breakaway from the red line if he can control. Trying to catch up his ball. Made by John Casey. Mahar has good speed, but Broughton had better that time. And having a little trouble handling the puck may have slowed Mahar's progress down. With this one, it's thrown back on by Bellows. Tenorti trying to jam it in, can't do it. It worked ahead for Bob Bassett. Watched there by Bellows, who's dropped back on the bench, and Bassett right in front. Lost it across the goal, mouth wide. Now here's Stevens centering one. It gets back to Paul Cavallini. Standing on a Paul Cavallini, but no matter. A whistle and stoppage of play because Brian Propp was injured back behind the North Stars goal. Boy, the North Stars have really put their power play together. One of the keys to their power play has been the play of Mark Tenorti. We asked him what he thought the key ingredients are to a successful power play.
For us, it's breaking out of our own zone. It seems like our biggest problem is when we do run into troubles is that we're just not getting in their end with any speed or anybody carrying it in. And once we get it in there, we're fine. But Chicago, the one game, put a lot of pressure on us, and St. Louis did the one game, they put a lot of pressure on us. We seem to have a little bit of problem breaking out there. But with the new system we got, it seems like it's working a lot better. If we get it in their end, we feel like we got the guys that can score.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Phase one of the power play, getting it into the other guy's end and setting it up. And when they can get the puck on Neil Broughton's stick, they've got a pretty good quarterback to bring it up the ice. On with this, the North Stars. John Chambers slips it in, slowed by Riendo, spun off by Stevens, just past the glove hand reach of Bobby Smith and down. We're over halfway through this first period, 9:35 to go in it, 35 seconds left on the North Stars power play. Craig couldn't reach him. Here's Adam Oates rushing ahead. Oates stepping in, shoved right off and taken to the corner with some authority there by Brian Glenn. Bobby Smith wheels back out, down to the last 20 on the man advantage. Smith crossing in, watched by Stevens, pivots away. Bobby Smith back from Madonna, across the right. Wilkinson with a power play goal. They're 2 for 2 on the man advantage. And they're making it look easy. St. Louis absolutely back on their heels. Their penalty-killing unit with a team that was about a mile wide. Mike Modano with a real heads-up cross-ice pass to Neil Wilkinson. One-time shot, but you know, Riendo was tucked right back in his net. He didn't read that very well at all, and as a result, I think Brian Sutter has spotted that Riendo isn't reacting well. He's pulled him. Pat Jablonski is now taking the net for the St. Louis Blues. Modano, the only assist on Wilkinson's second goal of the playoffs at 10:48, a power play goal, and Pat Jablonski, who had
come on in relief of Riendo before, back in the Detroit series. A native of Toledo, Ohio, the only American-born player on otherwise a Canadian team. Voted the best International Hockey League goalie, playing for Peoria in the IHL this year. And he comes in with 8 shots having been fired at his predecessor, and 4 of them have gone in. Puck flips off of Norris, kept alive with the Blues, but just golfed back out again by Sherla. Played across for Gino Cavallini, rips it to the corner. He watches it behind now to Norris. Norris takes to the corner, but is able to pivot away and then wipes out. So Oates up with it for Cavallini. Shot that didn't hit by much. Harold Smith goes back to get it. If you're just joining us, 8:35 to go in the first period. Oh, what a hit. James Sherla knows his role. 4-0 Minnesota ahead. And now a little more muscle. Just not only offensive muscle being flexed out there. Miles with a pass ahead. Carried back out by Wilkinson. Doubled back in to Blonsky out of his goal to stop it. Scott Stevens there, run into by the rookie Mike Craig. Kept alive by Broughton, but lost then for Brindamore. Brindamore hit by Craig, pivots the net, and now starts to move back out. 8 minutes to go in this first period as Brindamore steps ahead. Has an opening, but that's quickly closed by Chambers. Butcher able to follow up. Banks one over for Brindamore. Hooked it out front, and a little tap by Duquesne. Sent it ahead, and it worked on for Broughton. Ran right off the puck by Scott Stevens. Oates moves it on. Up the wing for Brindamore. We've not seen that much of Brett Hall in this game. Brought back out again by Craig, and he's stepped into by Kelly Chase, and the whole play whistled down on an offside.
What a textbook way to take a guy in the neutral zone. When you step up on him, especially if it's Neil Broughton, you have to forget that he's carrying a puck. Scott Stevens, we were talking about Scott Stevens today, along with Craig Muni of the Edmonton Oilers. There are so few good open ice hitters, especially when you've got talented people like Neil Broughton coming on. You see that Stevens never paid attention to the puck whatsoever. Made the correct choice. Really took Broughton down on the play. Harold Smith back in the lineup again here in game 3. Really raked against the boards by James Sherla. Neither coach has made a lineup change. Same lineup as game 2 for both.
Chambers turns ahead, ran into Paul Cavallini, so it's walked on by Gagne. Gets to control and moves further. Gagne with a blast. Made by Jablonski. Feathered off the boards, Pagano tries to pull away and does, but then is denied on the check of Dan Quinn. Pagano got it back. Gagne fired top down. Tried to feather one, but it's picked up and hooked out by Tomlinson and turned back up the wing by Dan Quinn. He moves to the slot and blasts one. Back right up and held by John Casey.
Boy, has Bob Gainey's job ever gotten easy, just like that. 4-0 lead. What do you do with Brett Hall now? Well, Bob Gainey this morning told us that he was undecided about how to play Brett Hall. One of his problems is you pay too much attention to Brett Hall, you really disrupt your own team. And he brought up a good point. He said, we hardly ever play 4-on-4 hockey these days because of the rules. But when we shadow Brett Hall, our team ends up playing 4-on-4 hockey. Tough offensively, tough defensively, but still. I think he's got to pay real close attention to Brett Hall right now. With a 4-0 lead, he does not have to worry about the line playing against Brett Hall's line generating any offense. So why not just concentrate on shutting down Adam Oates, Brett Hall? You've got enough goals to win. Maybe the other guys on the other lines can generate more offense.
So even at 4-0, you still deal with the Hall damage control.
Oh, absolutely. I think even more than, if you want to play them straight away and Brett happens to go nuts on you, I mean, he can get 3 in a couple of minutes. With Adam Oates, if he starts to have the room that he needs out there, I think it becomes far easier now for the North Stars to pay more attention to Hall and Oates.
Off this face-off, puck scoot to the point. Butcher shoots one, knocks down, rebound, poked away by Puro. Paul Cavallini is shot, and that one ricocheted to the corner. Blues starting to get some attack going now. They've had 5 of the last 7 shots. Pivoting his back and over for Lowry. Knocked away by Basil McRae. In goes Tenardi with a big bang on Basson. And some more hitting there as Lowry stepped into a
there they are. Now, Butcher was trying to stay back because defensemen, if they move in, put their team at a disadvantage. The faceoff comes outside the blue line, but Basil went right to Butcher. 6:27 to go. First period of play. 4-0 to home team ahead.
Today, a guy losing his hair can choose between being the man he wants to be
You look great with hair. Do something to save it.
and the man he could become.
Think you've got nature like everyone else.
Doctors have hair loss treatment programs that are proven to work, and the sooner you see a doctor, the better.
We don't want nature. We want hair.
When you consider the argument
We might look great bald.
and you decide you want hair, there's only one thing to do. See your doctor or call this number for more information.
Well, the doors are still opening and closing over at the penalty box. Looks like Paul Cavallini has made his way in there. Thought the original call might have been against Mark Tenorti. Now I guess Basil's complaining about a hit as well. There's Tenorti, 24 of the North Stars, and Bob Bassett of the Blues. Looked like a pretty clean hit. Bassett went back at him. Basil got Bassett pretty good from behind. Feeling that Basil picked up that nick when he went out as Garth Butcher followed through on his hit. Butcher looked like he got the stick up high on him. We're still in the dark of the penalties. We'll get the announcement on that shortly. But the outstanding penalty will be assessed to Dahlquist of the North Stars. Turned out it wasn't Tenorti after all. Dahlquist is off for a hold. Shane Turler is sitting beside him because of a slash. And Cavallini is also off for slashing. Turler and Cavallini got together with their slashing contest and were each assessed too. And in the middle of it all, Chris Dahlquist was caught for holding. But they have the capability of being explosive. Oates is out. You notice him for their face-off. Haller's on his right. Brindamore on his left. Power play number 3 of the night for the St. Louis Blues is walking on his front and short-handedly. Jablonski had to make a save on him. So Adam Oates will bring it on. Gets help from Brown. Takes the toss right back. Feeds toward the Mark Tenorti side and took a hit from him. And that was enough to throw the play off. Neutralized face-off to result with 1:42 to go on the minor penalty to Dahlquist and 6:09 left in the first period. Well, the North Stars are definitely defending against the power play that has had so little success in the playoffs. 4 for 50 on the power coming in. That's what St. Louis is. Bob Gainey killed a lot of penalties during his career, so there's a lot of penalty-killing instinct and discipline and knowledge being passed along to his guys. Off the face-off, John Chambers drills it all the way back down. Jablonski stops it, leaves it for Scott Stevens. Broughton working up front for the North Stars, along with Stu Gavin. Gavin with one of the 4 goals tonight. Bring back Chambers as well as Tenorti. Brindamore moves in. Lindsay is hooked back to Stevens. Stevens didn't have a play, though, as Broughton was right nearby, so he had to hold. Placing catch with Hall and loses on this one. Broughton ahead. Stu Gavin rushing on. And Gavin just worms his way away. Plays some keep away, handing over to Mark Puro. Halfway through the St. Louis power play, 5:25 to go in the first period. 4-0 Minnesota. Brindamore able to step by Tenorti. He's one for Hall and he does it. Stevens a shot. That one not loose in front. Halfway to Brett Hall. Hands on back to Stevens. Then for Hall once more. Back for Stevens. A shot and that ricochet was Hall couldn't connect it in. They battle along the board. Tenorti jamming at it. Worked along now for Adam Oates. Double teamed along the board. Tenorti trying to pull away. Looking on Andy Van Hellemond. North Stars want to freeze it here. Still can't. The time's going off the clock, and that's You want to change anything because he's playing against a poor power play?
One thing that can happen with a penalty killing unit or a player, a goal scorer who's not scoring enough, that he'll start taking shots that he wouldn't normally take. And if anything, I would see the St. Louis power play trying to get the puck to the front of the net more often, whether it's on a good shot or simply to place the puck down in the goal-scoring area and try to outnumber us in front of the net. Our penalty killing won't change too much. We're a team that tries to kill penalties first, and we haven't scored many goals killing penalties this year, and we won't be out looking to score goals because their unit hasn't been scoring the way they have in the past.
Puck turned out of play. Boy, those words mean a lot coming from one of the greatest penalty killers in hockey history, in Bob Gainey. For many years with the Montreal Canadiens, a part of the defensively strong Montreal squad, 4 times named the Selke Trophy winner for best defensive forward in the league.
Is it any wonder this team is good defensively with Gainey's 4 Selkies? Bob Clark won it once the first 7 years it was being handed out right after Bob Gainey won his. Bob Clark's the general manager here. And in the first 7 years it was handed out, Doug Jarvis, one of Bob Gainey's assistant coaches, also won it. So 5 of the first 7 years that trophy for the best defensive forward in the NHL was handed out, 5 of the first 7 years, one member of the management team here in Minnesota won it.
Puck brought ahead. Works on now for Garth Butcher to carry. Dump back in. Out of his net to get it is Casey. Turned back over by Gagne. Picked up by Madonna. Couldn't get that one to Brian Propp. Loaded back in by Butcher, and it crashed over to be taken by Sean Chambers. Then for Madonna. Will pass finesse by Propp for a carry by Gagne. Couple boards it ahead, and Madonna caught up to it. Tried to finesse it by him, did, and Propp played it up the wing. Gagne hustles to the corner right after it. And again tonight, as early in the game at St. Louis game 2, the North Stars are winning the race to most of the puck. Fans reacting to something across the way, but Andy Van Hellemond does too, and he's going to take Mike Madonna off. So Madonna applies the pressure. We'll leave some pressure sitting in the penalty box.
What is refreshing?
Go right back on the power. The pick had already been broken by the time he took down Dave Thomas. And what a great takedown.
So on that, Madonna sits for the hold at 16:40, and the St. Louis Blues go out on the power play. Brown plays back over for Scott Stevens. Then ahead for Adam Oates. Turn back for Brown, then across to Stevens once more. Moves ahead with Brindamore, but that ricocheted off the back of the skate of Neil Broughton. And we're down to nearly the last 3 minutes of this first period, with St. Louis rushing ahead on its power play. A 4-goal deficit the Blues have to make up. In case you're just joining us, Giles, Gavin, Bellows, and Wilkinson struck in a span of just over 7 minutes of time in the first 11 minutes of this period. Brown steps behind the goal. Eyed up there by Bureau. Passes it ahead. Stevens to carry further. Play broken down, though. Deflection by the North Stars over for Dahlquist to fling it back off. Stevens drops back to take, and 1:10 to go. Jeff Brown once again. Hands back over for Stevens. Cranks it wide. Blocked behind by Casey. Has not had a whole lot of rough stuff to deal with in terms of difficulty tonight. Another penalty coming up against the North Stars, or will it be against St. Louis? It'll be against the St. Louis Blues. Brindamore protests, and he will sit.
Go ahead. I thought it was going to be interference. Brindamore came through, and the North Stars were just trying to get into their penalty killing formation. Turned out to be a slashing call against Brindamore. Yeah, I thought maybe with the contact he would be called for interference, but he swung around and slashed. Didn't make contact, but tell you what, doesn't matter. You slash hard enough and even get air. If the intention is there, most of the officials will call it. Boy, Brian Sutter preaches discipline. Bob Gainey preaches discipline. We didn't think that it would be a factor in this series, but as the series has gone on, this series has really heated up. Tempers have flared. And now it becomes a challenge of controlling your own emotions. Rod Brindamore didn't on that play.
Well, it has to be a situation where Minnesota in particular controls itself. They don't want to get St. Louis back in the rush again. A rush that they had in the second game of this series. And even though they were behind early, as they were in this one tonight, it was only by a goal, not by 4. St. Louis can strike like lightning. Will they do it? Oates unable to get through. This one forced off by Casey. But offensively, it's been all Minnesota. Even though the Blues have outshot them 11-10, that hasn't been difficult. One Butcher a shot. That was tougher, but Casey snagged it too. It was tougher, but with 4-on-4 hockey, you've got one less guy out there to drive for a rebound and creating a screen in front of John Casey. And with Adam Oates and Brett Hull as your two guys out there, you're not going to have anybody blocking and jamming in front. So you can see that John Casey had pretty good visibility on that one. Brett Hull was the closest guy there for deflection. How about Adam Oates? Well, he can see people that we can't even spot from here. Adam Oates had his head buried against the boards with a guy hanging all over him. Perfect pass back to Garth Butcher. Butcher and Paul Cavallini watch the point in this 4-on-4 hockey. Puck taken by Chambers, and Chambers flipped one that went by Gavin all the way back down, and Jablonski tends it. In 20 seconds, Minnesota will get the power play. They'll have it for the third time. They've struck on the prior two, and leading the game 4-0 with 90 seconds to go in the period. Pivoting away as Oates has it for Butcher in the slot. Had to hurry the shot as Gavin closed in on him, and it popped harmlessly over the net. Oates trying to keep it alive. Worked on there by Glenn. In front for Hull. Turn around. Slot with a stiff one. Turned aside by Casey. All right, now the penalty time is up to the North Stars, and the North Stars have swung onto the power play. They can get it going now with a pass by Bobby Smith, but that skips away from Gavin. Gives the North Stars a chance to change and get the people out they want. 4 minutes gone in the first period. 4-0 Minnesota ahead. 40 seconds remaining on their power play. Rotten turns it back ahead for Mark Tenorti. Tenorti walking on, drops it on back for Prop, jabs one in front, hacked away by Dave Lowry, and backs down. All the way down, and they get a signal of icing, but there won't be one here. John Casey wanted it, and they thought that they were still on a 4-on-4, which has just expired. Back ahead, Gagne, a pass for Prop, hooked down. Fans want a penalty, but none will be called. Jablonski spins this around the boards, and Tenorti kept it alive. Over for Dave Gagne. Gagne shuffles it off now for Bellows. Bellows floats it behind, pivoting with his Mark Tenorti. Pass cut and thrown back down by Lowry. Ricocheted off the linesman Wayne Bonney, and it's played now in the final 10 seconds of the period. Bellows moves it ahead. You'll hear quite an ovation in 4 seconds. A period full of them. For goals by Giles, Gavin, Bellows, and Wilkinson. Shots 12-10 St. Louis in goal. Minnesota 4, the Blues nothing. Let's pause now for this regional break. You're watching the Stanley Cup playoffs on Sports Channel.
I'm Jim Martindale, here to tell you about the one and only Garden Weasel. This 5-in-1 tool makes gardening fun and easy. The 3 rotary action blades mesh with the topsoil, uprooting young weeds and creating a beneficial mulch. Remove the center blade for hard-to-reach areas. The Weasel is virtually self-cleaning. There's only one Garden Weasel, and it's backed by a 100% lifetime guarantee.
The Garden Weasel is available at participating Ace, True Value, Trustworthy, and Frank's Nursery and Crafts. Makes a great gift for friends who garden.
As cars get older, they may need higher and higher octane to perform like they used to. But there is a gasoline specially formulated to control this higher octane need while providing the highest level of engine cleanliness. Texaco System will give great performance in every octane grade. still think all gasolines are the same?
There's no magic formula for catching big bass like these. It's really a matter of know-how, the kind of know-how that brings in big winnings for the pro anglers. I'm Ray Scott, and you can share the know-how that bass pros depend on when you join the Bass Anglers Sportsman Society. As a member, you get 10 big issues a year of Bassmaster magazine, packed cover to cover with the hottest bass catching how-tos, written and photographed by anglers for anglers. And each issue is the next best thing to a fishing trip with bassing greats like Roland Martin, Guido Hibden, and Larry Nixon. If you want to go for bigger bass, go for the best know-how. Join Bass today, and I'll send you this free gift. Here's how.
Join Bass now and get your free tackle pack with Man's new wrap, a pack of augertail worms, the Man Alive lure, and Berkeley Trilene XP solar line. Remember, you'll also get 10 big issues of Bassmaster magazine with your $15 paid membership. Call 1-800-367-7070 now to join.
Game 3 of the Norris Division Final Series tonight from the Met Center in Bloomington, Minnesota. At the end of the first period, big lead for the North Stars, 4-0. And I'm joined in our intermission studios by a guy that participated in the offense. You guys were having trouble getting it going. Was the game plan any different than it was in Game 1 or Game 2, Brian Bellows?
No, the game plan was essentially the same. The only thing we wanted to do was just keep the tempo as high as possible, and it seems to have worked.
Tell me about the chippiness. Now, you guys came through a real vicious series with the Chicago Blackhawks. I think the mood in the Detroit-St. Louis series wasn't far from that one. Do you think this series could get as chippy as the series you had with Chicago?
I think it's going to be a little bit more dirtier in the sense there's more stick work already out there, and it's already present out there. But Chicago was definitely, I think a lot more physical. Every single player on both teams was really hitting each other, and our model then was bump for bump. But this series a little bit more, maybe dirty isn't the right word. Chippy maybe is a better word.
Tell me about a comment that you made last night when you were being interviewed on a local television station. I know that you got chopped quite a bit in Game 2, but you said if that's the way it's going to be, then Adam Oates and Brett Hull are going to have to take their lumps as well. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, it's basically, we learned that last year from Sierra when we had him here, and it's like, hey, if, some of the players in their team are going to try and, just chop and try and injure our players as much as possible. Our top players, our top offensive players, and players that are valuable to us, and you don't go after the players that are doing it. You go after their top players, and it's always been something in the league that's been understood. And, I don't think our team is dirty like that, but we're going to give them extra hits. We're not going to do anything vicious, but we're definitely going to, we get the opportunity to hit Hull and hit Oates. We're going to do it.
Okay, let's talk about your contribution to the offense. You scored the third goal in the first period. It was a power play goal. You got help from Brian Propp on the play, too.
Oh, a lot of help. I came down the wing here, and I just shot it too far wide, almost hooked it there, and it came around the boards, and I could see that right about now. Proppy's coming in, he's going to pick the puck up, and just coming in the camera on the left-hand side of the goal was myself, and I just deflected it past the endo. He was even joking with me later, asking if I really meant to do it.
Did you think of peeling away, or as soon as it went wide, did you think of stopping there and waiting in case somebody cut it at the point?
I looked up at first, and I seen that we were going to keep the puck in, and that's when I decided to go right to the side of the net and wait and see what happens, because if he's in trouble, he's going to need me as an outlet on the far side.
How important has the lead been in this series? You guys have had it most of the time, and for that matter, you had it a lot at the end of your series against Chicago.
Well, it's definitely a lift. I mean, let's face it, once you get in the playoff game and, you start getting tired up there, it's tough to come back. But as we learned from playing Chicago, we were up 5-2 and we ended up losing the game, so we're not going to rest on anything right here. We're going to keep going after them.
Okay, Brian, continued success. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thank you.
Brian Bellows of the North Stars scored one in the first period. They lead 4-0. In a moment, our Sports Nightly studios.
This is where it happened. The breakthrough in urethane chemistry that created a car polish so technologically advanced, one application lasts an entire year. Introducing Finish 2001, the car polish you use only once every 12 months. This old car's been badly neglected. Its finish appears destroyed. With no rubbing, no buffing, Finish 2001 with its urethane formula safely brings back the showroom shine, a rich, deep gloss shine that lasts an entire year. We tested Finish 2001 against other leading polishes, even some that claim to protect your car against fire or against acid. And the test results? Nothing, but nothing protects or shines better than Finish 2001, the 12-month car polish with a 100% money-back guarantee.
Finish 2001 is available at these fine stores.
How about a better hand soap?
Not us with hand soap. We don't need no lava soap, no.
Regular soap
soap won't always work, but lava with pumice will. Interested? No, no, no. Lava, but don't try to cope without it, soap.
I used to have dandruff, so I tried Head & Shoulders. Then I tried Selsun Blue. Blue is better.
Selsun Blue relieves dandruff flecking better than Head & Shoulders. And doctors recommend it more than Head & Shoulders, Danorex, and Tegman.
Blue is better.
Selsun Blue.
Get ready to launch yourself into the world of air and space Smithsonian, a world that captivates the imagination. Satellites, superjets, soaring, something different every other month. There's no other magazine like Air and Space, and with your subscription comes membership in the National Air and Space Museum in Washington.
To order Air and Space, call 800-841-0300 and receive a full year. 6 issues for just $18 with membership in the National Air and Space Museum. 800-841-0300.
From the Far East to Europe. Across the Caribbean and throughout North America, only one airline covers so much of the world with so much warmth.
Welcome back to Sports Channel Studios in New York. I'm C.J. Papa. In the first 2 games of the series, Edmonton has literally crowned the Kings. Los Angeles has lost 4 players to injuries, including Thomas Sandstrom and Bob Podolsky on Saturday night. The rough play even has the great one talking tough.
Obviously, we're not happy that both sides are out, but we got a couple of boys that we'll put in our lineup and mix it up and see what happens.
Well, in Game 1, the Kings lost 2 players, and in Game 2, they lost 2 more right there. 5 minutes into the contest, Thomas Sandstrom went down with a fractured leg. He was hurt in a collision with defenseman Craig Muni. Then a minute into the first OT, Bob Podolsky was nailed again by Muni. Podolsky sprained a ligament in his right knee. Podolsky will be sidelined 3 to 4 months, so both Podolsky and Sandstrom are out for the series. The other 2 players injured are Steve Casper and Mike Donnelly both suffered mild concussions, and both are questionable for Game 3, which we will join in progress live from Northland's Coliseum after the Blues and the Stars. To news from around the NHL, 9 days after the Rangers were eliminated from the playoffs, the club fired its president, Jack Giller. The surprise announcement today comes less than 2 months after Giller was dumped as president of the New York Knicks. The head of Madison Square Garden, Richard Evans, says the job of GM Neil Smith is safe, and the Rangers, who haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1940, they're 51 years, the longest drought in NHL history. When we come back, we'll have more after this timeout. Playoff action on Sports Channel America.
Mercier and defending Stanley Cup champion Edmonton survived the Battle of Alberta. Now, the Oilers face the Los Angeles Kings of the league's all-time leading scorer Wayne Gretzky in the Sprite Division Final.
It's Mario Lemieux and the high-flying Pittsburgh Penguins versus the upstart Washington Capitals in the Patrick Division Final. Don't miss Game 4 action Tuesday live at 7:30. Check out the great playoff action heading your way this weekend on Sports Channel. Friday, the Celtics begin their road to another championship when they face the Indiana Pacers live at 7:30. Immediately following the Celtics, the North Stars take on the Blues in Campbell Conference action. And Edmonton battles LA live at 11:30. Saturday, there's more NHL playoffs as Game 6 of the Wales Conference Division Finals takes the ice at 7:30. Sunday, the MSL playoffs continue at 4. And at 8, it's a Game 6 Campbell Conference doubleheader. So get into the playoff action all weekend long on Sports Channel.
Well, maybe, if you don't do drugs or alcohol or drop out of school.
Promise we won't.
Okay, then let's make a deal. A contract.
Get your own contract at any Citgo gasoline retailer. Mail it back and you'll get Dale's official poster. Plus, a chance to meet him at a real NASCAR race.
It's a formula for America.
Don't drink your alcohol.
Get your contract at Citgo today.
Sports Channel presents RCA's Sports Wonder Video Contest. Have your funniest home sports videos shown on TV and win valuable prizes. Each month, we'll give away a 20-inch RCA color TV, 2 tickets to a pro or college sporting event, and a Sports Channel t-shirt. Each month's first prize winner will compete for an RCA home theater. Call 1-800-825-YOU-WIN for complete contest rules. Or send your entries to RCA Sports Wonder Video Contest. P.O. Box 555, Emerson, New Jersey, 07630. Contest ends June 28, 1991.
Here at the Met Sports Center in Bloomington, Minnesota, 20 minutes have been played, and the North Stars have the lead in the contest 4-0. It really didn't take them too long to come up with the game's first goal. Tonight, though, longer than the first 2 times, 3 minutes 39 seconds before they took the lead.
Remember at one point, I forget where or when in this series, I said that the Minnesota North Stars were not going to fold up because they're very strong defensively. Well, that same strength is now what the problem is for the St. Louis Blues. They've got to overcome a 4-goal deficit, and it's going to be next to impossible in this hockey game to do. And they started to unravel early. Kurt Giles scored his 5th playoff career goal, and I think that was basically the beginning of the end for Vincent Riendo. It didn't appear to hit anything on the way to the net, but even though it dropped, Vincent Riendo seemed to have time to get in front of that shot. He didn't have to go down. It fooled him somehow, and at that point early in the game, the North Stars led 1-0.
A minute and 50 seconds later, there was a change at center ice. The North Stars gathered the puck in from the Blues, and Bobby Smith with a beautiful feed across for Stu Gavin, the guy who's been the second star of the game in both prior contests, and he's certainly in the running for it tonight. 2-0 at that point. Bellows made it 3-0.
And then the Minnesota North Stars power play. After the Bellows power play goal, the power play that had been kind of quiet the first 2 games, certainly not the pace that they showed against the Blackhawks, hit for 2 consecutive. Bellows goal, and then this one by Neil Wilkinson. That's the 4th goal of the first period.
Shot for 12-10 St. Louis. Goals, 4-0 Minnesota. The second in a moment.
Each year, the experts at Car and Driver look at over 100 cars, so you don't have to. From the current year cars, they just picked their 10 best. At the most, you'll probably only buy one of them. That's too bad, because 2 of the 10 best are Mercury. Mercury Stable and Mercury Tracer LCA. All this in the quality of a Mercury.
When sports cream, when arms are sore, when legs ache, when muscles hurt, why sports cream? Massaging sports cream in brings fast pain relief. No medicine smell, no odor. Why sports cream? Because it works. Over 28 million adults get athlete's foot.
I'm Jim Burke. I had athlete's foot until I used MP27. It has an ingredient recommended by doctors.
Look, MP27 stops the burning, itching of athlete's foot fast.
MP27. Nothing's a better cure for athlete's foot.
Tough on persistent dandruff. Head and Shoulders Intensive Treatment presents the NHL's greatest hits. Clean, rugged hits are one of the NHL's most dramatic features. Dishing them out is easier if you're 6'4" and 225 pounds, like the Capitals' Kevin Hatcher. Hatcher makes his large presence felt by Washington's opponents, emerging as one of the league's premier enforcers. Kevin Hatcher delivers some of the NHL's greatest hits.
So what's little dandruff?
Okay. Imagine you're at the social event of the year, and your dream girl says hello just as you do this. Her first impression? What a hug. Show me a cute face.
Give me a break.
The break dies. Never get a second chance in the first two tests.
So?
The regular shampoos don't fix your problem. Try it.
Head and Shoulders? Well, you don't have dandruff.
Didn't know.
Head and Shoulders, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Tonight's Stanley Cup playoff game on Sports Channel America is brought to you by Miller Genuine Draft. There's only one light beer with the big taste of Miller Genuine Draft. Cold filtered Genuine Draft Light. By Lava, but don't try to cope without it choke. And by the Diamond Anniversary Band. This year, tell her you'll marry her all over again.
The Met Sports Center, 4-0. The Minnesota North Stars leading as we begin the second period. In the first period, they have made a change in the shot total for St. Louis. John Casey, the man on the left, faced 13 blue shots, and they keep the Minnesota total at 10. Only 2 of those were faced by Pat Jablonski, who came on in relief of Vincent Riendo, and he got them both. Underway in the second period, there are no power plays at the beginning of this period. Mike Modano forced back. Gets to the corner by Brindamore. Brian Glynn trying to hack it loose. Given a jolt from behind by Dan Quinn. Along the boards they work it. Trying to pull it free. Unable to do it, Modano. In close quarters, Kelly Chase wants to pull it away. Chase still in traffic. Worked on there. A lot of concerted effort on the board. Brindamore couldn't bounce one in front, so Casey with a big goal stick just scoops it on to Brian Propp, hustling to it Gagne. Gagne with a battle on his hands with Scott Stevens. It comes to Propp, moving right in, couldn't get the pass across, but no matter. The play was offside going in.
Boy, so many Minnesota defensemen have come on to the Chicago series. Brian Glynn, who was acquired this season from the Calgary Flames organization in exchange for Frantisek Musil. Funny, Andy Murray, the assistant coach from Minnesota, was telling us the other day that one of the things they want to do is get their defensemen to jump up into the play. Well, Chambers, number 26, in the foreground, and Brian Glynn play together. There's Andy here talking to Brian Glynn. I said, why not take that back? That's got Travis Wedding look alike. Yes, they did. But you have any trouble in getting the defensemen to jump into the play. He said, not so with Brian Glynn and Chambers. We have to get them to look at one another and figure out which one is going to stay back. They both want to get up into it so much.
Not only do they look alike, they're quite a bit alike in personality, as this entire North Stars coaching staff is, except maybe for chattery Glenn Chico Rex. The rest are very studious, quiet, soft-spoken individuals, trying to get by his fellows, and that one poked aside by Jablonski after Bellows had been tangled up with Tomlinson. Butcher dumps it back along, floated back out by Hull, perhaps a 2-on-1 for St. Louis. Stepping ahead is Oates, now a 2-on-2 as Oates crosses, tries to Jake Tenardi, can't do it. He's for Butcher. Butcher taken down on a little trip by Bellows. Play will continue. Andy Van Hellemond saw it from that side and got a very good look at it. Catalini a shot, and Casey tangled up with Oates as the puck went streaming by. The puck over for Tomlinson, chopped at it, swatted away by Casey, and gathered in by Tenardi, who's able to move it ahead. Tenardi avoids the check, but knocks the ball from the linesman, Ron Asseltine. Back on comes Hall. Hall with a shot. Wheeled right up by Casey after he knocked it down. That's 2 shots for Hall, one in the first, one in the second, and 2 saves on Hall by Casey.
Well, the North Stars have Stu Gavin out there against Brett Hall, but he was nowhere near him. And one of the problems when you have a rush such as the North Stars had that breaks down the way it did, when it breaks down that quickly and they're able to counterattack that fast, you can't transition from offense to defense that quickly. So Brett Hall picked it up through the neutral zone and just waited. Finally got away from Gavin. You could see Gavin did track him down, but didn't get close enough to him to stop the shot.
Nothing succeeds at the box office like success. And the North Stars built in wins on the ice and subsequently built at the box office too. For next year, they have already sold more season tickets than they had this year. Bassin a shot save. Rebound! And another save by Casey. Lowry had the second shot and Bassin had the first one. Puck glove down by Featherstone. Rick Sutter tries to get it to him, but it's punched back out by Gaetan Duchesne. Harold snaps there, turns it on for Lowry, pivoting with it is Bassin. Sized up and crunched to the boards by Wilkinson. Played off by Gaetan Duchesne, spun by Rick Sutter. Worked back ahead by Wilkinson. On with this for the North Stars is Mike Craig. Wants to turn by Harold Smith, but can't do it. Smith cut him off with good body position. Pumped along by Rick Sutter. Kept by Glenn and set it down. And that's denied by Smith again. Headman pass to Rick Sutter. Hooking him to catch up with Glenn, and the puck spun back for Chambers. On now for the dump back in by Mark Bureau. 17:25 to go in the second. If you're just joining us, along with Bill Clement, Mike Emmerich from the Met Sports Center in Bloomington, Minnesota. A 1-1 tie in the series, but in this game, the North Stars have the lead 4-0. Puck flipped in on goal, and another block by Casey, and he'll trap this one and hang on. Kelly Chase wants to start something. Basil McRae says, start it up with me if you want. And a crowd gathers, and Mark Bureau roughing it up a bit with Paul Bassett.
Brian Glynn simply stood his ground, basically turning his side to Kelly Chase until help got there. And you're right, Basil McRae came rolling through and said, okay, who wants me? Kelly Chase would have obliged, but the linesman got there at the same time. Typically flat here in the second period, I think the North Stars. And I think typically you go into the locker room with a 4-0 lead. You think you may have delivered the death blow in the first period. Not sure. You come out, you don't have the same spark that you had early in the first period. And at the same time, the Blues come charging out because Brian Sutter has just spent 5 minutes with them before they left the locker room.
There's one guy and there's another. Neither one will keep their teams lethargic for very long. Basil McRae's line was on for the first goal, scored by Kurt Giles. Seems like a long time ago, well over an hour ago. 3:39 in the first. Then Gavin, then Bellows, then Wilkinson. Andy Van Hellemond now pointing at the St. Louis bench and motioning someone off. Looks as though the North Stars will be penalized as well. We'll check it all out when we get back in this 4-0 Minnesota lead.
There's only one light beer with the sweet taste of Miller Genuine Draft. Cold filtered Genuine Draft Light.
We're on our way. Yeah, we'll be ready. Just back to play. McRae and Bob Basson got roughing minors at 250. I think it may have been Darren Kimball, and they may have confused the 28 with the 29, but we'll wait to get an official word. Meanwhile, this is Kelly Chase flipping one that went wide of goaltender John Casey, kept alive by Stephen Keith. Mark Quinn fired, and that was blocked away. Thrown to the side of the net, and the net is lodged. And so play halted once again, and Kelly Chase coming by with a little punch in the direction of Bobby Smith.
Well, this hold would have been tough for Andy Van Hellemond to pick up. As Kelly Chase went by the net after Dan Quinn's shot, and you'll see Quinn's shot coming right here on Casey through a screen. Right at him. Watch Kelly Chase, number 39, try to go wide, and look at Casey. He put his left arm out and held Chase back so that he couldn't get anywhere, but Van Hellemond was standing on the far left of your screen, way over on the other side of the net. Dan Quinn from this range has to be dangerous. That time he rifled it right at John Casey, and if the North Stars, or at least if the Blues are going to get back in this one, they need more than Brett Hall and Adam Oates. They need Dan Quinn, anybody else that can score one.
McRae, who was involved in one tip, gets a minor for roughing, and Bob Basson, who was in that staring contest in which apparently no one blinked with Mark Bureau, got the other one. And those at 250. Doesn't affect manpower on the ice. Dahlquist holding behind. Little toss over for Mark Tenorti. Spins one ahead. It ricocheted off Brown. Played right back by Stevens and laid by Adam Oates for Brindamore to scoot back along, but it is set up by Casey. Taken now by Dahlquist. Dahlquist floats it back down. Casey full strength, so we're going to have an icing call. With 16:07 to go in the second, and the North Stars in the lead 4-0.
Brett Hall is still going to try and do what he does best. And I'm not talking about scoring goals. I'm talking about the work ethic. Through the first 2 games of this series, he was one of the hardest workers on the ice. If the North Stars continue to play man-to-man against him, he can put some pressure on them, even coming through the neutral zone. In general, your coverage in the neutral zone is by lane. If you're skating back through with a guy like Hall and you're not shadowing him, if he cuts all the way across the ice, you let him go. You cover that lane. When you're shadowing, you follow him so that you open up that lane. So Hall can really open up spots for other guys by changing lanes often, which he's been doing throughout this series when he's had a guy right on him.
Another icing call if Butcher gets there, and clearly he does get there first. So back it'll come near Casey. Boy, it becomes a team-wide thing among the forwards when you're shadowing. You pointed out before, the easiest thing to do is to stay on the guy you're shadowing, but that has to be a read by the other forwards, too.
Absolutely. Gaetan Duchesne, good skating speed. Stu Gavin, according to Brett Hall, better skating speed. He thinks that Gavin's a little better skater than Duchesne. But sure, if that lane vacates, if Gaetan Duchesne is skating through the neutral zone with Brett Hall on one side, Hall goes completely to the other side of the ice and Duchesne follows him, it opens up that lane. At that time, the defense has to read it, and the North Stars coaching staff wants the defense to move all the way over to that vacated lane, shift over, double shift, so that they can cover all lanes at that point.
Start Butcher flip. That went off Craig. Butcher again, and this ricocheted off Oates. Flipped back by Dahlquist, but kept by Butcher. Oh, and he had Hall at the front moving in, but he couldn't control the pass. And a good hit by Tino Cavallini on Dahlquist. Cavallini right back to the corner, and Dahlquist right on him. Now Duchesne battling with Hall. Puck kicked back over for Oates. Nearly tied up by Tenorti, but Oates able to spin away. This time he couldn't get away. Casey out to 10. one along, and then Casey tangled up behind with Pino Cavallini. Casey back in his crease as this one worked along by Butcher. Casey goes right back out to get it again and foists it off from Mike Craig. Craig just shuffles it back out, dropping the head, picks up Duchesne along the way. Right now it's 2-on-1. Duchesne spun, controls, and fires away from Broughton, but it's gathered in by Tenardi. Has Broughton in front, threw one inside, and Broughton sent hurtling to the ice after the puck glanced off of him. Now Hall back with those 2-on-2, and they can't get through the defense of defenseman Kurt Giles and winger Brian Propp. Propp puts this one back over for Gagne with 14:40 to go in the second period. If you're just joining us, all of the scoring was in the first, and all by Minnesota. 4 goals. The guy who had the first one was Kurt Giles, who's just passed it across, and now is preoccupied with Rick Sutter's checking as you watch this sent off the glass. Sutter and Giles just now arriving back on the play. As up with it is Harold Smith. Can't get it by Wilkinson. But this one ricocheted off Madonna, and so the North Stars drop further. 18 shots for St. Louis, 5 in this period. The North Stars have had 3 in the period, and 13 overall. With the score, the North Stars 4, the Blues nothing. Let's pause for a moment.
Each year, the expert car and driver look at over 100 cars, so you don't have to. From the current new cars, they just picked their 10 best. At the most, you'll probably only buy one of them. That's too bad, because 2 of the 10 best are Mercury. Mercury Sable and Mercury Tracer LCA. All this in the quality of a Mercury.
Well, Pat Jablonski has fared a little better than Vincent Riendo. This pass by Gaetan Duchesne simply went way behind Neil Brockman. And with Tenardi pitching in, nobody backed him up. All of the forwards still in deep, and as a result, the Blues were able to come out of the zone. Brian Propp got back to cover up very quickly.
Pat Jablonski from a hockey family. His father played in the International League in Toledo for a number of years, and that was where Pat was born. Right-handed catching goaltender for the St. Louis Blues, and earlier this season, the Peoria Rivermen of the IHL. Up with this Modano, across for Propp, who takes the shot. Brindamore across for Stevens, who starts it ahead. Shuffled back in by Dan Quinn. Kelly Chase trying to paw his way to it. Able to slide one along the boards, but an easy play for Sean Chambers. Shifting from defense to offense, he works to Propp. Then ahead for Gagne. For Chambers to follow up. Plays it for Modano for Gagne. He's able to recover, but then can't control. Sent by the Blues back down, and there'll be another icing call coming up here. 13:35 to go in the second period. 4-0 Minnesota. We pause now for this regional break. You're watching the Stanley Cup playoffs on Sports Channel. T-shirted people whose shirts spell out the word stars, leading cheers during breaks here. Off the face-off, it's jammed away by Lowry, right back to the corner. Churla held back by Harold Smith. Wilkinson pinched in, but it came right to the Blues possession. Moved back out by Basson for Glenn Featherstone to carry. Featherstone took a jab from Kurt Giles, spun one in front, and Casey just hit that one to the glass, and then the net is lost behind it.
Is on the ice. James Churla and Darren Kimball had a toe-to-toe battle. At the end of game 2, there's Churla. He's talking to Glenn Featherstone this time. But Kimball's out there. Basil's out there. Harold Smith.
It is normally in the third game turf battle that
you have an outbreak, especially in lopsided games. That was a pretty good pass by Glenn Featherstone. Fought back and just nudged John Chase. You see how easy the nets come off the little post here at the net center. And in a series like this, if people keep crashing and driving the net, we'll probably end up with more than our share of stoppages of play for that reason. Basil McRae, part of the Quebec Northeast chain and the Detroit Red Wings. Prior to here, side by side with Darren Kimball. Well, technically not. Ron Asseltine is in the middle, which shows that he has a good sense of anticipation. But now he has to move into other business, namely conducting the faceoff. Mark Bureau to take it opposite Bob Bassett. 13-17 to go in the second. Minnesota ahead of the St. Louis Blues, 4-0. Harold Smith flips it, tried to follow up, but that threw the play offside. And so again, neutralized faceoff the result. That time McRae and Kimball came together on the draw. They started that way. They made a couple little tugs with their sticks. Then split up. Kimball could have gotten a little closer to McRae at one point, but chose not to. Here they are right off the draw. Puck came to them, and then they jabbed back and forth a couple of times. Split up. Off this face-off, McRae trips up Kimball. Meanwhile, in the game, it is Wilkinson stepping ahead. Wilkinson tried to flip this one in, down to the ice from Bureau. Fans wanted a penalty on St. Louis. Turla tries to keep play alive, but the Blues break out. Kimball after this, Kurt Giles stepped into soundly by Kimball. Puck taken by McRae, and he's forced deeper by the checking of Rick Mahar. Mahar given a shove by McRae. Puck jammed right back off by Giles, slugged by Turla. And the Blues have to drop back, and now we have Kimball and Kurt Giles with an exchange at the front of the goal. One of the game's strongest in blue against one of the game's shortest. But that does not mean giant in white. 5'8", 175 pounds of fire, and we're going to have the big boys going at it here. Featherstone and Turla won't just talk this time, but maybe again they will.
Just took over their school. The students have no weapons.
Are you with me or not? Of course we're with you.
And no way out.
We got everybody killed. Too late to back out now.
The only chance they've got
We're not gonna give you. Get back.
is each other. Troy Soldiers, rated R. Starts Friday at a theater near you.
Well, besides asking Brian Bellows about the chippiness of this series between periods, I talked to a lot of North Stars players this morning. They all agreed that this series could get as chippy as the series they had against the Blackhawks. And it's getting that way, especially when these big guys are out on the ice. This is the exchange between Kimball and Giles. Giles gives away. I mean, he's the smallest guy on the ice height-wise by far, but he plays big. We talked about Kurt Giles, and at 185 pounds, he can take care of himself pretty well. You could see that he didn't let up on Kimball at all and actually came over with the left to crunch Kimball's head down onto the ice.
Well, Featherstone, in addition to getting 2 minutes, gets an extra 4. That's what goes up on the penalty side, on the blue side of the scoreboard. So if that is correct, then it's going to be a 4-minute power play coming up for the North Stars. So in the other roughing minors that Kimball and Giles
see that very often. The referee jumping into the box. Look, guys, if you can't get it right, let me explain it to you face to face.
On the Blues, number 29, Darren Kimball, minor penalties for slashing and roughing. On the Blues, number 36, Glenn Featherstone, a minor for unsportsmanlike conduct, and 4 minutes for steering.
There's your 4. You're absolutely right about the minor that canceled out with one of the North Star minors. So 4 minutes for steering out of all of that to Glenn Featherstone. Everything else canceled. Here come the North Stars on more power. This is their 4th power play, and it will be their 5th. Individual effort in this series so far. Set up Brian Propp wide open to the side. All Propp had to do was shovel it home to the open side. 5-0 North Stars.
Brian Propp with 4 goals, all 4 of them in the playoffs, coming on the power play. So that takes care of one of the minors to Featherstone. It's a long time he must spend, even though it's only 2 minutes looking on as things develop again. Minnesota 3 for 4 on the power play tonight. This becomes opportunity number 5. Tenorti moving it on. He's got Johnny drilled back down. So it's John Casey with it. Flipping it back over for Bellows. Shovels it across for Broughton to carry through it. Moving up with Propp and Gagne. Broughton beats Gagne across the front. That shot, but he'll control and hand back for Broughton. Brian Bellows with it. Back it comes for Broughton over to Tenorti. Shovels one, and that one deflected back out. Rushed ahead by Sutter. Tenorti there trying to cancel him. Sutter just controls and looks for some help. Finally has Basson coming into the play. Sutter able to keep play moving in the corner and causing that penalty clock to tick down to 1 minute and 5 seconds. Still for his team to kill. 5-0 Minnesota midway in the second period. Mike Craig with it. Getting a good lick by Stevens. Feeds over for Bobby Smith. Chambers feeds on back for Flynn and over to Craig. Cross at the front. All alone for a moment, but now Stevens on it. Flynn a shot. Came right back to him and he kept it. Quick one in front of him. It came off Stevens and went wide. And it's Propp in front. Made by Jablonski as he slid across the goal crease.
This game should be 6-0. What a play by Bobby Smith. You give big Bob Smith enough time behind the net and you've got a problem. Brian Propp ended up all alone in front of the net when Smith set up behind. Watch this pass from Smith to Propp. Perfect. Propp didn't get it all. That helped Jablonski, but give Pat Jablonski a lot of credit. He shot over there with the left pad and made an outstanding save. Good play by Craig to dump it back in. A lot of movement on this North Stars power play now. The Blues aren't able to control them.
The first power play goal officially is Propp. His 4th from Gagne and Bellows in 7:36. The second power play of this set has 41 seconds still to tick on it. The Blues have outshot the North Stars 19-16 in the game, but it doesn't mean a thing if you don't score, and they haven't. And Minnesota has 5 times. Propp to the back, double shot, and that one turned aside as Chambers let a good wrister go. Mahar blasted back down. John Casey to handle it. Leaves it for Chambers. Flynn is also back on a point. Bobby Smith and Basil McCray are up with Craig. Little tap by McCray, brought on now by Smith. Leaves it on the wing for Craig. Tries to turn by Paul Cavallini. No sail there. Bobby Smith moves into the play, but Mahar got the loose one. Fed it around, but not out. Chambers jumps it off from McCray, but he couldn't stop it. Paul Cavallini just guided it over for Mahar to play. He's got plenty of time and flipped one that didn't go the length as Chambers anticipated. Penalty time is now up. So the teams are back at full strength with 10:15 to go in the second. And the North Stars have the lead in the game 5.
for the North Stars. Brett Hall continues to go to the net. He's trying everything. That's Hall tied up with Sean Chambers. Spin around, attempt at the rebound, smothered by John Casey. Paying homage to Big Sean. He's not really a big guy, but he sure has played big in the playoffs for the North Stars.
Average attendance during the regular season, 7,900. But they built something here. The playoff average is over 14,000, and the owner, Norm Green, said just winning down the stretch and in the first series has put us 2 years ahead of what our projections were when we took over. A 2-on-1. The feed to Bellows. Bellows tied the center, got the back of the ball. Still they transport and going for it to Gavin. Gavin trying to pull away from Stevens and Doug. Met with a checking of Oates, though, and the Blues are able to outman. 9:25 to go in the second. Minnesota leading 5-0. It's Oates across for a shot by Gino Cavallini. Let him off the glass. Kicked loose by Jeff Brown. Picked up by Dahlquist and rolled ahead. And here's Broughton one-on-one. Stevens moving to a shot. It's batted back out by Jablonski. And it'll be recovered by Broughton and sent around for Bellows. Looks for McRae. Stalling shot Stevens as McRae puts one near the goal. Rushed ahead by Bureau. Worked further by Gino Cavallini. Open shot.
John Casey can prepare to face more good scoring opportunities from St. Louis, but while St. Louis is generating those chances, they're giving up a whole bunch in their end. They have to rely on Jablonski now. The Blues have opened it up. Adam Oates with that blast grabbed by John Casey. But to create the chances at Minnesota's end, the way St. Louis is doing here, they're having to give up a lot defensively. Jeff Brown pinched in, got caught doing their 2-on-1 partial breakaways. So the North Stars will probably have as many chances as the Blues because the Blues have decided to open up. Problem is, Blues are down 5 goals, and the big responsibility now really rests on Pat Jablonski's shoulders because he's going to face more attacks as the Blues have opened it up.
Good point. Up to the boards. Lowry cancels out with Gagne. Puck spun behind. Quinn tries to get there for a stopper, and it's pulled checked away by Casey, and he does it again, deflecting it but not out. Butcher from Paul Cavallini. Along to the pivoting Rich Sutter. Drops one back off. Dan Quinn went for it, but it was sent back in deep. We get a whistle and stoppage of play. Down went a Blue, and I think a North Star is going to be coming off as back from McRae, having some words with Dan Quinn. 8:28 to go in the second. Minnesota leading 5-0.
There's only one light beer with the sweet taste of Miller's Genuine Draft. Cold filtered Genuine Draft Light.
We're on our way. Yeah, we'll be ready. Waiting to see if the St. Louis Blues will decline the penalty and perhaps take a face-off piece, but they already have the face-off piece. So they'll take the man advantage. Basil McRae is off for cross-checking here in the second period at 11:32.
Fourth power play for the Blues. Paul Cavallini able to give it across now for Hall. Speaking of Paul Cavallini, pretty aggressive penalty killing by the North Stars here. A tip by Gavin, but it's picked up by Hall again. Spun back in for Oates. Brindamore at the front. They work the outside for Hall. And it's cut off by Gavin. Gavin able to make the Blues chase. It's dropped back off for Paul Cavallini. Starts to rush back out with 8 minutes to go in the second. Minnesota got 4 in the first, 1 in the second. The Blues have had 21 shots, but John Casey has got them all. Here's Adam Oates moving in. Tried to feed one of those. Ricocheted off Brockman and came back out. Jeff Brown brings it back. Elevates the pass ahead for Oates to chop deeper. Rushing right to it, Gaetan Duchesne. And he's able to pull away because Giles put a check on Brindamore. Went down to the ice and hurt his Giles. Meanwhile, the puck thrown back down and Jablonski up with it. Here's Giles flexing his neck after he hit the ice heavily. 52 seconds to go on this power play. Puck fed right back across
took matters into his own hands, but did it cleanly and didn't get called. Huge hit from a little guy.
30 seconds to go on the Blues power play, and under 7 minutes to go now in the second. Oates can't get through. Dahlquist wedged him off. Puck taken by Neil Broughton. Hammered off the glass and down. For the last dozen seconds of the power play, Scott Stevens slides it on a cross. Butcher brings it ahead. That one squibbed loose and is just sent back down by Wilkinson. 2 seconds and one. And out. And another standing ovation for the penalty killer. Tomlinson in. Tried to flip one, but it was denied by Chambers. Now up with it, trying to storm the net with Paul Rebound. They score! The Blues have gotten on the board for the first time.
They'll take them any way they can get them right now. You see who's right under the pile? Brett Hall blocking and jamming in front, trying to create some room for somebody else. The guy that found the room ultimately was Dave Tomlinson. I think he scored the goal. Neil Wilkinson stopped that jump-in attempt by Scott Stevens, but he dumped it all the way over to Tomlinson in the corner. And then the battle was on with Sean Chambers and Tomlinson. When Brett Hall came in, picked it up and went for the net, to see that Tomlinson beat Chambers the net. Chambers is throwing his head up in the air. He knew that Tomlinson was his man. 26 of the North Stars is Chambers, and Tomlinson just gets inside of him. Chambers lost position. The guy that scored 53 in the International League this season scores here, and it's 5-1 now, Minnesota.
Tomlinson second of the playoff. An assist to Hall, and it comes at 13:48. Giles passes on for Propp. Able to recover from the poke check of Paul Cavallini. Propp just rolls it in, takes the face right from Harold Snap. Paul Cavallini holding behind as the clock is ticked down to the last 5 3/4 minutes of the second period. Minnesota leading 5-1 as this one wedged right back in by Paxton. Going to get it is Brian Glynn. Glynn dumped it back off, and Madonna stays deep. Glynn tries to tie his man up. Bill mentioned St. Louis in the unenviable position of having to take chances now, but the Blues got to come up big. Madonna has to get control, upended by Smith, and that'll cost the Blues a pass. North Stars are 3 for 5 on the power play. They get pop number 6.
Pretty good recovery here by Mike Madonna. He tried to pass back to Gagne, then went and got it. Good speed. And as he was spinning away from Harold Smith, Big Harold just hooked him down. Madonna was just about to hook out of that little spin and head to the middle of the ice. So Harold Smith was overmatched in his speed department on that one and hooked down Mike Madonna. 5:22 to go in the second. And the North Stars have a chance now to enlarge in their lead. And the way their power play is going, you can expect that they're going to generate at least a couple of good scoring chances. They've scored 3 powers here tonight.
Blues goal. The North Stars have had sallies from Giles, Gavin, Bellows, Wilkinson, and Propp, and the last 3 have been on the power play. Mark Tenorti slides it on back for Gagne. Moving on with Neil Broughton. Gagne pinned for a moment by Lowry, so Broughton just forced it back in. Mahar tries to tip it off the glove of Tenorti, and it's played by Broughton again. Under 5 minutes to play in the second period. Another matchup in the NHL tonight is out west. A drive by Broughton, and that one off the gate and went wide. Slid back
They're coming in waves now. And the Blues can't even get a bounce. When Bobby Smith cut over the blue line, Scott Stevens had a chance at a bouncing puck right there. Went over his stick perfectly to Bobby Smith. Stevens tried to top him down, and all Smith wanted to do was get it on Jablonski to create a rebound. He did that. Mike Craig's little slipper bounced up. Watch this play. Dan Quinn lost the puck, and I really think it hurt him on the 2-on-1. Short-handed, the Blues came down. Quinn had Rick Sutter, and he couldn't make the play early enough. He had to wait to make it because he lost the puck, and that gave the very aggressive John Casey a chance to get his stick involved in the play.
Well, they've wheeled out John Casey's theme song a couple of times already tonight. Johnny, be good. Just been sensational. Buck fun indeed. Played by Bobby Smith. Smith to the back. Chambers the shot. St. Louis able to follow up short-handed for another 8 seconds. There'll be a penalty coming up to the North Stars. Basson trying to get in. Basson forced behind, checked off by Chambers. And with that, the whistle of Andy Van Hellemond is blown with still 1 second to go on the minor to Smith. And then the Blues will get a power play. Need anything they can get right now.
It was a simpler time. A time of hope and faith in the future. Blue jeans and white t-shirts were in. And people fell in love with the Miata. A ragtop, a two-seater, a true roadster. Everyone seems to be feeling pretty good. The Mazda Miata. It not only gives you a glimpse of the 90s, it takes you back as well.
It was behind the play, a long way behind the play, but Mike Madonna was caught for holding. It was just a little spin-around hold. So 3:23 to go here in the second period. The Blues trail 5-1, but they're going to get a power in a second. Harold Snepps is up over the box, ready to come out in a second.
To be their 5th power play of the game. Paul Cavallini controlling, steps out of the box and onto the ice is Dan Quinn as Brown takes over. Brown over for Quinn. At the front is Adam Oates. Hall is in the slot at the hash mark. They play some catch. Brown turning it back for Quinn. Through Broughton to Brown once more. Across for Hall to Quinn. Couldn't tee it up. Brown a shot and that tipped wide. Hall goes to the corner. Bumps there with Dahlquist, but is able to jam it along for Adam Oates. Turns it to the point to Paul Cavallini. 2:45 to go in the period. A minute 20 power play. A shot out of the glass from Hall. Turned along by Brown. Out fought by Broughton. And the Blues have to go back. Blues power play is 1 for the last 32, extending back into the Detroit series. And for those of you who just joined us in this series, we'll make mention that that was one that a Minnesota player put in himself in the last game, Mark Bureau. Here is Giles sending it off the rail and back down. 50 seconds still for the North Stars to kill. Minnesota has yielded only that one power play goal in its last 31 shorthanded situations, extending back into the Chicago series. Adam Oates to the back for Paul Cavallini, and a shot deflected right back out, but he's been cleared down by Bureau. Half a minute to go. Jeff Brown watched by Broughton. Joining him up front now is Stu Gavin. Dahlquist to working back with Sean Chambers. Walking it on is Brown. Big drive, and that one patted away by Casey. Then stick handles it over for Chambers, but it's not out. Stevens fires one and that slowed down, and Gavin shuffles it off the board, but too far. It gets past Broughton. In 5 seconds, perhaps another standing ovation. They've been giving them to the short-handed team all night. So much this time, but it's become commonplace, hasn't it? Jablonski on that shot. And the North Stars are upset saying, how do you call that icing when it was the goaltender who touched it? But this will be a neutralized face-off rather than an icing play. And they rule that Broughton was an illegal recipient of the tag.
Last rush by the Blues on their power play. Jeff Brown tried a big long shot from the blue line. I guess he was hoping for a rebound that Casey couldn't control. Well, Casey controlled it. But we talked in game 2 about how he has to change his stick from one position all the way across his body to shoot. Now, as he moves to the side, there he's already made the flip over, dumped it up. Now he has to lift the blade of the stick up, pushes the knob of the stick down to transition it back into the position that he needs in the set position. A little clumsy, but when you've been doing it for as many years as John Casey's been doing it, looks pretty easy.
A linesman misplay, and for that reason they'll go right to the center ice face-off circle, right in the dead middle of the rink. And a lively rink it has been tonight. Down to the last minute 10 of the second period. If you're just joining us, Minnesota scored 4 in the first, 1 in the second. The Blues countered with 1 of their own, and that's been 5-1. Bahar tries to get in, meanwhile, Duquesne starts it back the other way, lifts it in, and then took a healthy hit from Scott Stevens. Jablonski turns it off for Stevens, trying to jump it back, gave it right on to Duquesne. Bahar tried to force it from him, but Duquesne prevailed, so Stevens has to chase it down. Scott Stevens matched up with Butcher, played it ahead to Kelly Chase, who lays it back for Butcher in the final 35 seconds of the period. Checked off as Gino Cavallini by Bobby Smith, but Cavallini able to shake him on to Chase. Wanted to finesse it through for Cavallini. Turned back out, and Chambers caught a stick up high, and there'll be a Blues penalty with 23 seconds to go.
You know, Andy Van Hellemond has a reputation as a referee for letting guys play, not calling the little stuff. Well, that was a pretty good elbow, and there have been tons of power plays in this hockey game. Garth Butcher this time, Andy Van Hellemond signaled an elbow. Dottie, yeah, that's what it is. It's an elbow. So Brian Sutter is looking at another kill. 23 seconds to go in the period.
Power play 7 for the North Stars.
You know, after working all season long for home ice advantage, Brian Sutter has seen it evaporate in the first games of each of the series that they have been in against Detroit, Bingo. And he said, you know, it's tough working all season long to get home ice and to see it go away. The same thing has happened in the Minnesota series. And now they're down 5-1 here, and they don't even have the home ice advantage at this stage of the series. They have lost that to the North Stars.
106 points in the regular season, gone by that cock-up high was Brett Hull. Checked at 105 points. Chicago had 106. And Minnesota with a meager 68. But 4 above 500 from the 17th of January on. Chance to see this again as Scott Stevens just sent one off the glass.
Top right of your picture, Adam Oates was there, and Brett Hull was there, and as Hull went to glove it down, it looked like Adam Oates may have tipped it or else screened it enough to throw Brett Hull off, and it came down and hit him in the eye. Luckily for Brett Hull, it was a puck that looked to be at that point end over end.
Polite round of applause by most of the fans here at the Met Sports Center with 9 seconds to go in the second period. Brett Hull will sit and watch the last 9 seconds of this period, which has Minnesota on the power play. Trop and Bellows are the wingers for Gagne. St. Louis able to prevail on the faceoff, but Bellows able to turn it away. Upright by Glenn. Loose puck picked up by Sutter as the horn sounds, and a big hit on Bellows by Paul Cavallini. And that'll cause a bit of a crowd to move in. Brian Glenn moved right to the head of the class on that one as Bellows chats with Andy Van Hellemond. And the crowd roars once more. After the horn, but Bellows quickly out. 40 minutes has come and gone. 5-1 Minnesota. Let's pause for this regional break. You're watching the Stanley Cup playoffs on Sports Channel.
If you're concerned about getting rid of weeds this way, try a better way. I'm Jim Martindale, here to introduce you to the Weed Popper. Place the Weed Popper next to a weed, step down, and the weed pops right out. The Weed Popper pulls weeds without kneeling, bending, and without chemicals that may be dangerous to our groundwater supply. The Weed Popper, with its 100% lifetime guarantee, pops weeds out as easy as 1, 2, 3.
The Weed Popper is available at Kmart, Osco, Walgreens, and Frank's Nursery and Crafts. Makes a great gift for friends who garden.
Think I'll ever drive a car as fast as you?
Well, maybe, if you don't do drugs or alcohol or drop out of school.
Promise we won't.
Okay, then let's make a deal. A contract.
Get your own contract at any Citgo gasoline retailer. Mail it back and you'll get Dale's official poster. Plus, a chance to meet him at a real NASCAR race.
It's a performer for America.
Without drugs or alcohol.
Get your contract at Citgo today.
Rediscover American values at the Cellathon. Own Plymouth Voyager with automatic air and more, just $13,851. Advantage limit.
It's Mario Lemieux and the high-flying Pittsburgh Penguins versus the upstart Washington Capitals in the Patrick Ddivision Finals. Don't miss Game 4 action Tuesday live at 7:30.
Hi, I'm Brian Shaw of the Boston Celtics, and you're watching Sports Center.
Flyers captain tries pass broken up. Stevens across now. Gets the best in NHL action on Sports Channel. Watch Rockingham Report every racing day on Sports Channel.
End of two periods at the Met Center. Minnesota leads it 5-1. Right now, let's switch to the Smythe Division Final, where Edmonton and Los Angeles. Just over 11 minutes left in the first period. Let's go out to Don Whitman and Harry Neal.
Well, Dave Taylor. At this time, we say hello to all the viewers on Sports Channel America who have been watching action between Minnesota and St. Louis. I'm Don Whitman, along with Harry Neal, Ron McLean, and Don Cherry, and our Hockey Nights in Canada crew at Northland Coliseum in Edmonton. It's still scoreless, 10:45 remaining in the opening period. Very tied at a game apiece.
Well, there's a look at the best line for the Kings so far in the two games. Taylor, Robitaille, and Ellick. And here's a check by Robitaille on Jelena. And Robitaille, another guy that's not known for throwing his body around, went out of his way to take out the Oilers. Venisalo is playing on the wing with Gretzky and Granato. Kept in the zone. McSorley tried to throw it back to the net. Gretzky has it. He slipped it out front, but there was nobody in position, and Klima starts away. He can't control it. Venisalo pulls it along the boards. Kevin Lowe is back to gather it up for Edmonton. Quick wide pass knocked down by Granato. That's a high stick. 10:19 remaining in the period. Well, Tony Granato has to pick up some of the slack with the absence of Sandstrom. He has but one goal in the playoffs. He's a 30-goal scorer during the season, and he missed 12 games. So one goal in 8 games isn't good enough for Tony, and he's got an excellent shot, but and great speed and quickness, but I haven't seen him get his nose in the clear at all in the first 2 games. And usually, once or twice a game, he dashes away and gets a good chance, but not so far. Sandstrom and Pavelski represent 68 regular season goals. Sandstrom had 45, Pavelski 23, and each had 3 in the playoffs. So I don't think I have to explain any further just how they are going to be missed. Murphy tried to go around Marty McSorley, couldn't control the puck. McTavish gets it, or Murphy, his shot deflected. It's back to the net. Hugstad ties up McTavish. Tim Waters in there as well, and they force a face-off with 9:48 remaining in the opening period. It's still scoreless in Game 3 of this Smythe Division Final.
When sports cream, when arms are sore, when legs ache, when muscles hurt, why sports cream? Massaging sports cream in brings fast pain relief. No medicine smell, no odor. Why sports cream? Because it works. Over 28 million adults get athlete's foot.
I'm Jim Burke. I had athlete's foot until I used NP27. It has an ingredient recommended by doctors.
Look, NP27 stops the burning, itching of athlete's foot fast.
NP27. Nothing's a better cure for athlete's foot.
Well, Peter Pocklington, the owner
Edmonton Oilers at various times during the season must have been concerned with the way his team was playing when they had that losing streak early in the year, the fact that they were below 500 until the final regular season game. But as we have seen in the past, the Oilers appear to be a different team come playoffs.
Great patience shown by general manager Glenn Sather not to make deals for the future when he might have thought this was the last of the Edmonton Oilers Stanley Cup contenders. He didn't do very much. Look what happened. A lot of the teams that did make late moves pulled it quickly in the playoffs.
Dumped down the ice by Larry Robinson, racing back after it is Charlie Huddy. Robitaille trying to move in quickly on him. Robitaille hauls him down. The fans reacting. There's no whistle. Puck comes to the line. Robinson with his shot. Here gets a piece of it as Taylor in front of the net tries to deflect it.
Well, Charlie Huddy complaining to referee Gregson that he was hooked. Bad enough that he was hooked, but the puck went off the stick right to a team player, and they ended up getting a pretty good chance. Usually a hook like this is called because it creates a chance for the team that violated the rules, even though it was not a hook that might hurt someone. And Larry Robinson gets one on the net, and Dave Taylor got a stick on it. Here's the top goal scorer for the LA Kings, Luc Robitaille. He has a 5-game scoring streak going at the moment, and he has delivered, talking about rockets in McNall, a couple of rockets from McNall's team.
With 7 playoff goals, he's second in postseason activity to Brett Hull of St. Louis. Forechecking of the Kings causing the Oilers some problems. They dump it out to center ice. Kane moves it ahead to Robitaille, looking for Alec. He deflected it into the zone, and the Kings make a change. Norm McIver now starts back for Edmonton. McIver ahead to Messier. Messier dodges a check. There's it to Simpson. Simpson on the lane to Anderson. Anderson circling, coming out of the corner, knocked down a backhand shot. Loose puck in front of the net. Simpson managed to get that backhand shot away, and the puck was loose in front of that Los Angeles goal. 8:40 remaining in this still scoreless opening period. Robinson breaks.
Well, thanks, John and Harry. And no score, Los Angeles at Edmonton in the first period. After this timeout, we'll have more Stanley Cup playoff action on Sports Channel America.
When your office is 200,000 acres of rugged woodland, and you train the men who prevent anything from happening to it, you can't depend on just any deodorant. Men count on Old Spice deodorant. It works to prevent odor, to neutralize it before it starts. There's nothing else this effective with the clean plastic scent of Old Spice. You bet. Old Spice deodorant, because prevention is the ultimate form of protection. Count on it. This is where it happened. The breakthrough in urethane chemistry that created a car polish so technologically advanced, one application lasts an entire year. Introducing Finish 2001, the car polish you use only once every 12 months. This old car's been badly neglected. Its finish appears destroyed. With no rubbing, no buffing, Finish 2001 with its urethane formula safely brings back the showroom shine, a rich, deep gloss shine that lasts an entire year. We tested Finish 2001 against other leading polishes, even some that claim to protect your car against fire or against acid. And the test results? Nothing, but nothing protects or shines better than Finish 2001, the 12-month car polish with a 100% money-back guarantee.
Finish 2001 is available at these fine stores.
Well,
After 2 periods at the Met Center, Minnesota leads it 5-1. At Northland Coliseum, they're still scoreless in the first period, Los Angeles and Edmonton. After this timeout, we'll send you out to Minnesota for period 3 of St. Louis and Minnesota.
Cable is America's choice, and April is National Cable Month. TV you've got to see. You've got to see cable for the most choice, the best choice. Sports action from college to the pros. 24-hour news from around the world to around the corner. Round-the-clock entertainment from movie hits to the newest music. Only cable can excite you and inform you with so much choice. So choose cable now. Pizza Hut is the exclusive sponsor of National Cable Month. TV you've got to see.
Boschman with Shanahan. Boschman in. Boschman is shot. He scores! A steal by Oates for Hall. And it's blocked out by McCrimmon. Another cutting score! Gains the blue line. Second goal to the net and scores! By the Rangers. Here's a break. Harrison on the backhand. It's up. He scores! The Rangers lead 1-0. This one blocked the rebound. Turned aside. Another shot. They score! For the best in European soccer, turn on Sports Channel. Each week, English League Soccer will cover the top teams as they battle it out for a chance to be number one. Catch the biggest games and the best players on the continent in one of the world's oldest and most prestigious leagues. That's English League Soccer every week with a replay Saturdays at 8 a.m. on Sports Channel. The Boston Celtics. The Indiana Pacers. Playoff time. It's Larry Bird and company versus upstart Reggie Miller and the Pacers. Who will win this first-round NBA playoff battle? Find out when Sports Channel brings you exclusive home Celtics playoff action. This Friday, it's Game 1, beginning at 7:30 for the Celtics pregame show, followed at 8 by the Pacers and the Celtics only on Sports Channel. Here again at the Met Sports Center, along with Bill Clement, Mike Emmerich. The North Stars said, we got to get more than 2 to win in this series. Well, we've gotten 5 tonight. The offense has certainly come alive.
The offense is doing great, and at the other end, you know, you can play well during the regular season, but you make a name for yourself in the playoffs, and that's what John Casey is starting to do. He had to make some outstanding saves. Really, Vincent Riando did not have a good outing. That's why he got pulled. But at the other end, on everybody, just about everybody, John Casey has made the saves.
He's 26 for 27. His team leads 5-1.
It's the best time ever to get a Mazda 626 because the value of the 626 is greater than ever. Get a 626 LX now and save big on a Mazda value pack. Plus, get $1,500 cash back from Mazda. It's our biggest deal ever, but it won't last forever. Right time, right car, right deal. Save $2,320 on a Mazda 626 LX now.
Because if you don't watch your figure, who will?
It's the right deal now.
Because when it comes to water, the only place to start is at the top.
It's the right deal now.
Because when the party's going full steam, you don't want to fill up. So reach for the beer that won't slow you down. The Silver Bullet.
Putting it together.
If you needed to put together a lot of information into a finished document of the highest copy quality, copy on both sides, reduce, enlarge, insert tabs, add covers, and make 12 perfectly bound booklets all in about 10 minutes, then there's only one copier that can do the job. The Xerox 5090, the way to put it together. Faxing, scanning, copying, printing. Xerox, the document company.
Here are the first-round winners and the fans' choice for MVP. In the Campbell Conference, rock-solid defense and a tough work ethic make Detroit's Brad McCrimmon the top vote-getter with 22% of the vote. Brad barely beat out Wayne Gretzky of the Kings, who had 21%. In the Wales Conference, perennial all-star Ray Bourque of the Boston Bruins garnered 20% of the vote to finish ahead of Washington goaltender Don Beaupre. Don't forget to vote for your MVP in the second round. Call 1-900-896-2333. You must know your MVP team and jersey number.
Jablonski and Casey ready to face third period action, and the North Stars continue the power play that they had near the end of the second. It has 90 seconds to go. They have the lead in the game 5-1. Brian Bellows pivoting with this. Has Propp and Gagne out there with him, shovels it back for Mark Tenorti. Offside, Minnesota.
So the Blues are still trying to find the key to their power play. It has been lost since the playoffs began. Jeff Brown, I think, tried to relieve the tension the other day in St. Louis. Had a pretty good quote. He said, the problem with our power play is that I'm doing the Quebec power play. That's where Jeff Brown came from. Hully and Quinter, Fred Hull and Dan Quinn are doing the Calgary power play. Oatsy's doing the Detroit power play. Nobody's doing the St. Louis power play. At the time, it may have been amusing. It was the day between games, but right about now, I'm sure Jeff Brown doesn't want to be reminded of that quote.
Sliding out to handle this is Casey. Just a little tap behind. His team still on the power play for another minute 5. Early going third period. Minnesota has the lead in the contest 5-1. In the series, it is even in games in this best of 7 at 1 game apiece. It is Jeff Brown across the play. The North Stars scored twice in both of the first 2 games, but it didn't take them that long to get 3 tonight. 7 minutes and 52 seconds. The third on the power play, and they added 2 more power play tallies. A shot by Propp, and that one sent high. And spiked back out. 35 seconds to go on the power play. Played along for Brian Propp again. Missed for Modano. Back in on Jablonski it goes. Little tap over. Jablonski came on in relief of Vincent Riendo after he had yielded before. Puck centered in front, but Chambers with a tight check that time on Adam Oates. Paul Cavallini to handle in the final dozen of the kill for St. Louis. All back to Cavallini again. Mike Craig in to try to take it away from Paul Cavallini, but he's able to just throw it back down. And with this, 2 seconds and 1, and Garth Butcher's out of the box.
You know, the Blues are hurting for goals when Brian Sutter puts Adam Oates and Brett Hall out there to kill penalties.
They're out there for their offense, not their defense. You have to take chances like that now. Jablonski had trouble with that, but Snep's there to help. Paul Cavallini lays it on for Hull, looks ahead for Oates. Plays it over for Tomlinson, then back for Oates, then to Hull. Hull tries to pull loose and get a shot away. That doesn't work, and the North Stars wheel back out. Brett Hull with 3 shots on goal in this game. Giles to Smith, and that one went wide. Wilkinson holds. Wilkinson spins one that went off of Bobby Smith. Brought back ahead by Jeff Brown. Turns it on for the carry back by Oates. Then for Brown. Big shot, and that's blocked away by Casey. Kicked along by Tomlinson, and it's sent by Bobby Smith. Taken by Shane Churla and dumped ahead of Modano. Retrieved by Stevens and played back across. The Blues doing it on again. Dropped ahead for Hull, who fell down. Dan back on, and Scott Stevens will try to play it. Stevens with a shot, and that one skipped away. Basil McRae takes over. McRae played one for Shane Churla, but he's preoccupied with Stevens, can't get to it. Jeff Brown peels off with it with just over 17 minutes to play in the third. Brown able to turn away from the hook check of Bureau, and then he was cut right off of the board by Churla. Pass thrown to Churla, and he comes to the bench for a chip change.
Minnesota's forecheck has been so successful against St. Louis. They use an inside-out forecheck. The first guy goes right down the middle of the ice, starts to channel the flow to the side. They add to that as the Blues come out of their zone, and when they get to the neutral zone, they've only got half the ice to work with.
Offside call stops the clock. Has not changed the scoreboard.
To help relieve her heartburn, her Aunt Effie uses aluminum and magnesium, but his is Tums, and Tums has calcium.
Something my body needs anyway. I like that.
Tonight's game is brought to you by Monster Cars and Trucks. Monster, it just feels right. By Coors Light, the one that won't slow you down. The Silver Bullet is the right beer now. And by Xerox, the document company.
Brian Sutter looking on from the Blues bench. Turns loose a train bell in here. Either that or the reworking that Norm Green is doing to this whole area has resulted in maybe Amtrak having a stop off here. Meanwhile, it is Garth Butcher
Hollywood Pictures presents Michael Keaton as one good cop. In the battle for the streets, the line has been drawn. He's fighting a war that America can't afford to lose. One Good Cop, rated R, starts Friday, May 3rd. And from Touchstone Pictures, it's Sylvester Stallone in Oscar.
Sylvester Stallone put aside his big macho image, and he's funny.
It's a different Stallone than I've ever seen before.
He's much better in comedy than that Rambo.
Oscar, rated PG, starts Friday. And One Good Cop starts Friday, May 3rd.
Steady stream of guys headed to the penalty box. This time, Darren Kimball from St. Louis, Detan Duchesne from Minnesota. What do they call that officially?
Well, Duchesne got an elbow, and Kimball apparently has two. That may be changed. But at any rate, they cancel out. That's the important factor. The teams will play it 5 attackers aside, and the clock swift back in. Headed back toward his golfer. Able to touch up for an icing that will bring the face-off back near Jablonski.
Remember, we talked in the early going of the first period about the tempo of this hockey game. It's hard to tell if the ice had that great an effect or it's simply because the North Stars opened up a lead, the game opened up. It's back to being kind of a jump and chase tight second game right now. But in the first period when the North Stars were all over the Blues, did they ever look like they were a happy team to be back on this ice? You might be able to tell the reflection even on that shot. You come down to this ice surface when you're the first guy in the building. We got here early this morning before the team skated. And you walk down to the ice and it was a perfect sheet of glass. There are no players in the NHL, perhaps except for the slower defensemen that don't like coming here. Everybody loves to come and play in Minnesota.
Elbowing minors to Kimball and Duchesne at the 4-minute mark. Garth Butcher steps to the plate. Little pass ahead. Lowry getting a good bump by pass from McRae. Puck turned to the corner, and Garth Butcher will play once more. 15:35 to go in the third period. 28 shots for St. Louis, and John Casey has all but one of them. North Stars ahead 5-1. Good shot by Paul Cavallini. Blocked away. Rebound by Sutter. Handled by Casey, too. Sutter and back to McRae go to the corner. In comes Wilkinson to tie up a man. Sutter behind, out in front. Poke checked away by Casey before Sutter can even get to the front of the goal. Casey able to feather it around. Good hit by Bureau on Garth Butcher. Sutter a backhander, and that trickled off his stick. Paul Cavallini stepped into an across body attempt by Sherla. Flick one, that glove down by Kurt Giles. Giles steps ahead. He's got Bureau going along with him and drops to him. Then back for Giles. Going for 2 goals. Giles now takes a look and circles the wagons and just drops it off for McRae.
Boy, that's a smart player, Kurt Giles. He could have thrown it out when he was behind the net, but he's a defenseman. If he misses the pass, he catches himself back there. So Giles really gave up what might have been a better scoring chance, but so that he didn't put himself in a poor position defensively, he waited till he got around, then dumped it back in.
Lowry takes a swing with his stick at the back of Sherla as the two of them headed to the bench. Sherla had just put a pretty good jolt on Lowry, and those hurt, but they hurt even more when you're trailing 5-1, as St. Louis did. Casey shuffles this one along. Jammed but not out by Bobby Smith. Stevens heads to the slot, but the net dislodged behind Casey, and so once again play is stopped. With 14:08 to go in the third. John Casey in the lead.
Where the beat goes on, you don't want to fill up. So reach for the silver bullet, the one that won't slow you down.
At Northland's Coliseum, Los Angeles, on the offensive, they receive another blow to their offense. Watch Wayne Gretzky. He gets hit in the side of the head with the puck. They're already without Steve Kasper, Bob Podolsky, and Thomas Sandstrom. Gretzky will skate off slowly. Pete Demers takes him to the locker room for repairs. They're after one. We'll join that game after the Minnesota-St. Louis game.
Back to play. Tomlinson tried to reach Bellows, and Tomlinson went down. Ryan Glynn dumps it in. Bellows after it, locked up by Jeff Brown. Dribbled one in front of backhander. Had to be saved by Jablonski as it came from Bobby Smith. On with this for the Blues is Dino Cavallini. Hit. Fed one to the
Chambers on Mahar again. We're going to see a penalty coming up against the North Stars. 2 Gavin touches, and a North Star to come off with 13:21 to go in the third, and Minnesota leading 5-1. Let's pause for this regional break. You're watching the Stanley Cup playoffs on...
Think I'll ever drive a car as fast as you?
Well, maybe, if you don't do drugs or alcohol or drop out of school.
Promise we won't.
Okay, then let's make a deal. A contract.
Get your own contract at any Citgo gasoline retailer. Mail it back and you'll get Dale's official poster. Plus, a chance to meet him at a real NASCAR race.
They're performer for America.
Without drugs or alcohol.
Get your contract at Citgo today.
Blues on the power. John Chambers off for holding. How close is Stu Gavin staying to Brett Hall? Well, this is the tail end of 30 seconds of action. It started in this end. Gavin followed Hall all the way to the far end, all the way back, right in front of the net. You have to know that the North Stars are going to try and blanket Brett Hall right now with a 5-1 lead.
To the back to Brown, quickly to Paul Cavallini, then for Hall. Couldn't keep it. Dahlquist got it by Paul Cavallini. Initially he didn't, but Cavallini just couldn't control. Takes the pass back from Brown, but bounced it off of Brown. Oh, for the prior 5. The Blues on the power play tonight. Paul Cavallini's pass cut off by Gavin, just brushes it right back. Heading back up with it, Brown, a little pass as he tried to sneak one through the Hall, but it was an offside call that slowed that play.
Oh, this is the one time the North Stars can't stay close to Hall because they're down a man. Brett Hall, like a lot of wingers, he's the guy designated to stay way up ice. So see him just standing there watching what's happening on the power play, waiting for it to get to him. Now, at one point when his guys are coming up the middle, he'll cut across to try and get that pass. It keeps the defenseman really honest. The defenseman, instead of being able to stand up in the play, has to beware that there's a guy in behind them, so they have to back up. And that's what gives the puck carrier the room to bring it up the ice. Even if Hall doesn't get it, he can decoy the defenseman back to give the puck carrier more room.
Everyone creeping in quite close for this face-off that's being conducted by Wayne Bonny. Off the tie-up, able to pick it loose and drop it back in. Gaetan Duchesne. So Brown will take it as the clock winks down now to 12:40 to go in the third. North Stars have had a big lead since halfway through the first. And it is 4 goals now at 5-1. Puck dumped in. Casey with a little yank behind his back. Tenorti checked off, though. They feed it back to the point. Jeff Brown is there. Yanks it over to Hall. Hall feeds it in just to Oates. Oates couldn't return it, though, because of Tenorti. Brown across Paul Cavallini, then to Oates. Side of the net is Hall. Oates just holds down to 50 seconds to go on the power play. Now feeds it over for Brett Hall. Oates once more to the back to Brown. Can't even control. Now does. Flipped one that sailed into the seat. North Stars are headed towards killing 6 for 6. They still have 40 seconds left on this one, though.
You know that Brett Hall has now been on the ice for 23 of the 31 goals that the Blues have scored in the playoffs. Came into tonight still 22 of 30. So he doesn't have that many points, but we pointed out a number of times that he is an important guy offensively, even when he doesn't have the puck. No, he's not a happy guy. He's frustrated. Just threw his head back in the air when the puck on this play was deflected into the stands.
Play resumed, and Stu Gavin breaks ahead with it. Gavin hooked at. Couldn't get through. Jeff Brown takes over for the Blues defense. Brown lugging it back up in the final 28 of this power play, handing it on for Dan Quinn. Defended by Giles. Gavin came crashing in. Tenorti picks this one up and lifted one that went off of Quinn, but to Giles. Giles with plenty of time and all sorts of acreage just lays it back down. For the final 10 seconds of the power play.
of the great playoff action heading your way this weekend on Sports Channel. Friday, the Celtics begin their road to another championship when they face the Indiana Pacers live at 7:30. Immediately following the Celtics, the North Stars take on the Blues in Campbell Conference action. And Edmonton battles LA live at 11:30. Saturday, there's more NHL playoffs as Game 6 of the Wales Conference Division Finals takes the ice at 7:30. Sunday, the MSL playoffs continue at 4, and at 8, it's a Game 6 Campbell Conference doubleheader. So get into the playoff action all weekend long on Sports Channel.
Well, Mark Zanardi has picked up the roughing penalty. Chris Dahlquist was trying to move the puck out with his hand, which he did. Threw it right to Jeff Brown, and Mark Zanardi came over to take him. At this stage, I don't think the penalty was called. Andy Van Hellemond was going to let that slide until Dan Quinn came in, punched with the left hand.
That one drilled up into the seats and again play stopped in this short-handed situation. One of the shrouds held over the North Stars' head all year was the losing of several players to the expansion San Jose Sharks, who will enter play next year. Well, some time ago, 3 members of the NHL Board of Governors reworked the deal with San Jose, and although the details are confidential with all the parties, both Paul Martha of Pittsburgh and Fletcher of Calgary, 2 men involved in it, have said that the North Stars will hardly lose anyone, and after the expansion draft, they'll be even stronger than they are right now. All of that will take place in Buffalo in June during the entry draft period. Puck over for Stevens. His shot went wide. And Garth Butcher will field and neutralize. Power play 7 for the Blues, just underway. They're 0 for the prior 6 and trailing by 4, 5-1. Just under 11 minutes to go in the third period. Dahlquist shovels one back down. North Stars make a change up front. They bring out Duchesne to work with Mark Bureau. And it is John Chambers back with Wilkinson. A pass over 2 lines will bring the face-off back to the Blues end.
The North Stars worked hard at retooling that deal with San Jose. Didn't want to lose any of the young players like Sean Chambers, the guy you're looking at. Mike Craig, number 20, was told flat out by Bob Clark, he said, we will not lose Craig to the San Jose team. I think part of the deal, Mike, involves getting the San Jose Sharks some older players. Originally, Minnesota stood to lose a lot of their young players. But it made a lot of sense for San Jose to take some older players as well. I mean, they need some veteran leadership on that team to start off with. You're not going to win as an expansion team in the NHL with 21 and 22-year-olds. Yeah, that's right, Brian. Need a guy like you, 41. Okay, 31.
Somewhere in there.
He's under 50.
Adam Oates brings it ahead. Little pass on for Stevens. Drops it in deep. Headed back to play as Neil Wilkinson. And Wilkinson shovels one all the way back down the ice. So it is Pat Jablonski out of his goal. Feathers it back off for Oates. Little pass across, skated down on the bounce by Brindamore. Cut off by Giles. Followed through by Stevens. And it's Oates walking it ahead. Oates feeds across the hull, and getting a tip of that was Mark Bureau. Now Stevens fires, and Bureau went sprawling to the ice to deflect that one down.
Boy, Bureau's had a strong game. Remember, he was the GOAT in Game 2 in St. Louis. Put the puck into his own net. Well, he picked up a point in the first period on the first goal. His first playoff point in the NHL, and that was quite a block on the kill.
Neil Broughton, short-handed, had trouble with the checking of Wayne Bonney, the linesman. Forces this one along, and that one turned back for Dahlquist. Hit Adam Oates with it, and it's laid on back for Stevens. 15 seconds to go on the power play to St. Louis. Dahlquist able to shovel this one back down, and Jablonski will turn it back out for Oates again. 9.5 to go in the third. The Met Sports Center is just rocking tonight. The North Stars came out and got 4 in the first period, and lead in this game 5-1. Fasten with it. They killed off 7 for 7. The feed in front went off of Bellows, and so Stevens had to recover. Second and third effort now by Scott Stevens, and it's flipped back out for the North Stars, and once again it'll be Adam Oates to go back, and Jablonski to watch him play it. Gift change for Minnesota, Basil McRae, who's been a feisty leader on the ice and at the bench. You may have seen him a moment ago talking things up down there, making sure that his team doesn't become lethargic here with that big lead. Neil Wilkinson there, chased to the corner by Lowry. Basson comes by 2. Bobby Smith tried to chop it along. He and Basson tie up, and the puck frozen. And a face-off to come near Casey when we come back. 8:42 to go in the third. Mark Bureau's team at a big lead here.
first time in history, the compact pickup ranked most trouble-free. Was also ranked highest in truck customer satisfaction. Mazda, a truck so tough, we guarantee it long enough for a trip around the world. Twice. Mazda truck. Guaranteed tough.
A large dent out your chest.
Gentlemen, you see with the gray hair, with his back to us right now, is Norm Green, the first-year owner of this team. Big smile on his face, and why not? He is a hands-on owner. Three things he wanted to accomplish as quickly as he could. First of all, to convince people here that he was not moving. There were all sorts of rumors for that. We'll get to the others in a second. Giles a shot, and that one deflected by Smith and sailed back down. The second was he wanted to see the team have credibility on the ice. And the third, there were all sorts of misinterpretations and feelings about the San Jose deal. And that caused people to maybe not have faith here. Well, you have a good team this year, but you're going to lose it. Well, since the retooling of the deal, it's obvious that he's not going to lose all of his team. And those are the things that lead to confidence and season tickets. And the season ticket holder is the financial backbone of any sports franchise. Major league or minor league. Snap splits it in, cut off and shuttled back out again by Brian Glenn.
There's no telling how easy the job of marketing this team will be. Don't forget, this North Stars team is on the verge of going up 2-1 in the division final. And keep in mind that the North Stars, to get out of their division, had to knock off the two top teams in hockey. First, Chicago, who finished number 1 overall. They took their event in 6th. 7:50 to go in the third here. They're on the verge of going up 2-1 against the second-best team in hockey. The Blues finished with 105 points. If the North Stars are able to get by the Blues in this series, how easy will it be for Norm Green's marketing people to take it that big step further into credibility for next year?
Nothing succeeds like winning. He mentioned earlier today that the winning that his team has done this year has advanced him, mentioned earlier, years beyond the game plan that he had. Another thing that he wanted to get square was that the team was not only not going to leave the Twin Cities area, they weren't going to leave Bloomington either. Here is Sutter throwing one in front that is tipped wide by Lowry, because there are other places in the Twin Cities area where they could play. Big arena in St. Paul where the Fighting Saints once played in the World Hockey Association, and where the NCAA championships in hockey were held this year. And then, of course, an arena downtown where the Timberwolves of the NBA are playing. Downtown in Minneapolis. Pass ahead for Basil McRae. Flips one for Churla, who would be going for his second goal of the series. And Churla puts the big hit on Rob Brindamore, who comes right back for some on him. And then an extra hit by Paul Cavallini, but Churla able to get free, kicks it in front. And the puck post loose, and there'll be a penalty coming up against St. Louis. Bobby Smith was about to go at it with Garth Butcher, but you see a little left there thrown by Paul Cavallini on the prone Churla. And a crowd will gather here.
I didn't even think Churla would have the strength to throw a punch from being on his back, but he was flat on his back, decided he'd taken enough of Cavallini lying on him and gave him a shot. But what great work by Shane Churla. Everything's working tonight for the North Stars. 5-1 with 6:52 to go.
People love the convenience of fax machines. What most of us don't like are funny paper faxes that curl up and are hard to read. That's why Xerox makes more kinds of plain paper fax machines than anyone else, for documents that are easy to read and a pleasure to handle, because they're on good old plain paper. Plain paper fax machines from Xerox, the way to put it together.
Putting it together.
Faxing, scanning, copying, printing. Xerox, the document company.
Well, the linesmen Wayne Bonney and Ron Asseltine aren't finished their evening's work. After players had been separated and sent to the penalty box, 3 Blues were standing with Brian Bellows, giving them a rough time. Garth Butcher was one of them, but Rick Sutter actually stood in there to make some peace, holding Butcher back. Mark Sonorti, number 24 of the North Stars, just came charging in to give Bellows some help because he was alone with 3 Blues. More penalties to come. Who do we have over in the penalty box in the original? I know that Rod Brindamore Steve Turley is not one of them.
Brindamore, I think, was going to get the original minor. Now, whether that'll thaw off with the additional penalties, we don't know.
Big hit by Brindamore on Turla, and then he got help from Paul Cavallini. But watch Turla. Watch his skate pass. He lost his stick, no big deal. And then Paul Cavallini, when the whistle was really, the play was being blown down right about now, decided that he was going to stay on St. Turley. You talk about being aggravated. Turley looked like he was on the turnbuckle. He was held, and finally put together enough strength for a straight left when he was on his back.
North Stars Bobby Smith a minor for splashing, and on the North Stars Mark Tenorti a 10-minute misconduct. Again, the time of the penalty, 13:08. Defeating Brindamore of the Blues a holding.
13:08 and Tenorti a 10-minute misconduct. Not a game misconduct.
13:08.
It was important to Bobby Smith that that game misconduct be rescinded. He's not a guy that gets his stick up that much at all. But for two high-sticking game or two stick fouls that result in game misconduct, you get a two-game vacation. And for two regular game misconducts, for being third man in or being tossed out of a game for any other reason, why you get a game suspension too. So he didn't want to have that in case there was an accidental one that was mishandled, and that one in game one was simply mishandled.
It's also the pride of never having had one called on him.
Right.
Stu Gavin's done another outstanding job on Brett Hall. He's a 190-pounder, and he doesn't look it. 31 years old, but when you see his forearms, you can tell where a lot of 190 pounds is. Boy, I was really surprised. He's got forearms like Popeye.
Pretty interesting beard, too.
Well, he admits that that's pretty seedy looking, though. I mean, Stu Gavin's not going to try and con anybody about his beard. Guys on his own team are even razzing him about the beard.
Out to get this is Casey, flips one off the high glass. Madonna there, but Kelly Chase centers one. Gets loose and Prop sent one across, so that's kept by Paul Cavallini, and it's blocked away by Giles. Brian Prop just lifted high to the air, brought down by Lowry. 6:20 to go in the third. Minnesota has the lead in the game 5-1. Teams are at even strength on the canceling minors. And this conduct to Tenorti doesn't show up, but Andy Van Helleman has another one he's going to call. This one might be a fiver, too. Kelly Chase skates right over to the penalty box and sits.
He had been hounding Neil Wilkinson, number 5 of the North Stars, as they came through the neutral zone. Wilkinson put his body in a bad position when he tried to pass it up center. I mean, when he dropped his shoulder. Watch Wilkinson. See him turning? Well, as soon as you turn like that, you're fair game. And Chase had the stick between his legs. He might have picked up the penalty after he went down. Looked like he gave Wilkinson a pretty good shot. Yeah, high sticking. There didn't seem to be any high sticking until he went down.
No injury on that. Nothing further than just a high stick. Feeling that he has been done wrong, Kelly Chase explaining to Rod Brindamore is nearby. The big roar of applause goes up because of the manometer that they have at center ice, but they certainly haven't needed anything artificial to encourage this crowd tonight. The North Stars are on power play 8. They are 3 for the prior 7. Neil Broughton brings it ahead for Gagne to Bellows. Up the wing and fires off the tip of the pad of Jablonski. Rolled along for Bellows. Chased off by Lowry. Can't point it. It's nudged on and feathered to the back, but Broughton kept it to Brian Prop. Couldn't get it across to Gagne, who was breaking in from the right side. Mahar for the short-handed Blues, walking ahead with it. Broughton has dropped back. The feed across for Rick Sutter. Back checked away by Prop. Given to Bellows. The drop for Gagne, who can carry it further. Gagne to Bellows. Bellows to Gagne. Save Jablonski. And Prop had to hurry because he knew Jablonski was down and fanned on it. It is Bellows again. Passed it where Chambers had been, and so the North Stars drop back.
But the only time you're ever able to walk through the St. Louis Blues is when they've packed it in. It's 5-1 here with 5:02 to go, and it's just open season on offense now, even though it is a power play for Minnesota. I mean, everybody's just being able to walk through to the net. so easy for the puck carrier. You just have to dump it through. You're always going to get a chance.
Paul Cavallini with a chance, and that's Conway held. The Waffle board first, the glove second, and Casey waits as Chambers stares at Bassett.
Cool hand Casey. Boy, he looked relaxed in there. Told us after game one that he consciously works on staying calm. Doesn't want to overreact, but look how easy he makes this look. That's confidence right there.
Play back in. Chambers a pass over for McRae. Stepped into by Paul Cavallini. Walking ahead with this, trying to take loose with Oates. But it's fed off for Basil McRae. McRae's pass for Bobby Smith. Chased down and tapped to the corner by Lowry. He's upended by McRae. Now long it came for Mike Craig. Gets help from Casey to swing it ahead for Bobby Smith. Forechecking Adam Oates. Brett Hall is out there too. Up the wing for McRae. Starts ahead and dishes over for Smith. Looks for McRae. Pass for Craig. And that one went off his stick. Just over 4 minutes to play. Likely in the game, but for now we'll play third period. Paul Cavallini felt that smooth, slick ice. And again, a partial standing O just for that check. On with this is Stevens. Couldn't get by on defense. Right there to check him off with Chris Dahlquist. Moving on with it is Oates. Dahlquist makes him swirl away. He picks up Stevens but deals it off for Brown and a shot. Down to the ice at the front of the goal just now getting up Dino Cavallini as that hit off him. And it's 2-on-1. Hero has Sherlin. He taps his stick. He wants it. It must have hit the post. It looked as though he buried it. But this time it didn't go in. Emmerich Duke, but the videotape won't show it to you.
Hey, you look like an avid sports fan. How would you like to win $100?
Do what?
$100. All you have to do is answer 6 sports trivia questions.
Like what?
Well, questions on football, soccer, tennis, basketball, golf.
Baseball?
Yes, baseball. All sports. Just answer 6 trivia
$100.
questions.
What are the questions?
I can't tell you. Just call 1-900-446-GAME. Championship Sports Trivia. Call 1-900-446-GAME. Pat Jablonski's doing pretty good. You think Shane Sherler wanted this puck? He was tapping his stick on the ice outside the blue line. Mark Giro with a perfect pass. He tried the redirection move, which he should have tried. He just missed. The post got him, so Shane Sherler came that close.
3:15 to go in the third. 5-1 Minnesota. Giles, Gavin, Bellows, Wilkinson, and Croft with the goal. Tomlinson the lone goal for St. Louis. Don't worry about Edmonton and Los Angeles. We're watching that one for you too. Puck turned along now for Brindamore. Brindamore's pass comes on the money for Kimball, but he had trouble with it. Brushed on back by Gavin. Sean Chambers out of suburban Detroit, Michigan. Hands on for Bobby Smith. We're going to get a penalty, and it's going after Bellows this time was Darren Kimball. And a crowd gathers at center ice. Sean Chambers wants to take on Stevens, but he pulls away. But Darren Kimball is in attack mode going on Bellows. Quickly, Andy Van Hellemond signaled a penalty.
Trying Bellows though. He doesn't mind it at all. And for all of the abuse that Brian Bellows takes, very quietly out there, if you watch him, and it's not always when the play is near him, he dishes out his share. He gets his licks in.
The smile was for Kimball, and so will the penalty be. Let's return to our studios.
Well, thanks, Mike. At Northland Coliseum, does Los Angeles score early in the second period? Todd Ellis kicks it in with his foot. No goal. Terry Gregson scores. Wayne Gretzky still hasn't returned from an injury in the first period. We'll take you to this game after the St. Louis, Minnesota.
Kimball with a hook, a rough, and a shower at 17:24.
And in that order.
Two minors to Darren Kimball, and so the North Stars out of this will get 2 power plays. The quicker they score, the quicker they go on the other, but in terms of scoring, they've done enough for the night. They have 5. This will be power play number 9, followed by 10. That's barring subsequent penalty time being assessed to Minnesota. Puck spun around by Lowry, gathered in by Gagne. Well, it's been spread out pretty well. Prop with a goal and an assist. Bellows with 1 and 1. Gagne with an assist. Broughton with 1. Brian Glynn with an assist. Bureau the same. And Bobby Smith with 2. Garth Butcher hands it over for Featherstone. And back down it goes. We're down to the last 2 minutes of regulation time, and the North Stars enjoying a big 4-goal lead. Puck rolled ahead by Brian Klopp. Play is stopped. For a moment, we thought we heard a whistle, but we'll correct ourselves as this one slugged back down. What we understand we heard in the way of a bell a moment ago was a fire alarm up here in our press box, but we've survived the 15 minutes that have followed, so nothing serious there. Hearing whistles too, and Smith with a shot, and that one sailed wide. Chambers finesse one in front, spiked loose by Butcher, and then tossed to Rick Sutter. A minute 20 to go in the game. Fast and moving ahead. Rick Sutter at the front, and that turned aside by John Casey. And it's stopped there, and I believe it's going to be on one of the North Stars, I believe, Bobby Smith. A slashing call as Smith zips. Let's listen to C.J. Pappas.
Well, thanks, Mike, at Northlands Coliseum. Edmonton gets a goal. Jeff Buchboom credited. He flips it on that to Kelly Rudy. We'll be joining this game at the conclusion of St. Louis and Minnesota.
Still chippy here. Bobby Smith off for a slash. We've only got a minute and 14 to go in this one. There's Smith going behind the net. Ooh, yeah. Pretty good flash on Bob Baffin. Well, if you're going to dish it out and retaliate, now's the time.
North Stars will not get that 10th power play that we mentioned. The Blues have outshot the North Stars 30-26. But that is evaporating and harmless into the Northland air tonight. Rainy, damp sort of day here, but a big night of celebration for these North Stars fans, and it all began just under 4 minutes into the first period, when the shortest North Star got the huge first goal, and they have 7 straight first goals in the playoffs, Minnesota. Kurt Giles, who has just passed ahead to Broughton. Then Gavin, then Bellows, then Wilkinson. The latter 2 on the power play in the first, Prop on the power play in the second. Dave Tomlinson, the rookie for the Blues, midway in the second, and there's been no scoring since. 50 seconds left. 4-on-4 hockey being played right now. Broughton lobs it in, tips James on. Mark Bureau comes out with Turley. Glenn will be in back with Dahlquist. Brett Hall had 3 shots through 2 periods. He got an assist on the night, but he has not gone all year in this 90-91 campaign, including playoffs, goalless in 3 straight. That's what's happened thus far in this one, the third of the 3. And the third game of the series. Gets back out, laid back down. 10 seconds, down to the last for the shouting. Let's listen to it.
this one immensely.